Hey everyone, we're here finally. Sorry we're late. So glad to be with you. It was my fault that we were late. My audio wasn't working. I couldn't figure out why. So I restarted the computer and then it worked. It's like the old technology hack.
Hi, everyone.
This is Ari Whitten. Yay! Sorry for being here.
It's kind of like me being on, which is special, but it's also your birthday. So it's both of our special days.
Yay. Yay, happy birthday to me. And I think a lot of people are wishing me happy birthday, which is awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's take a look at the chat thread here. Yay, Ari and Susan. Hi, Yvonne. Hi, Lois. Diane. My people have been with me all day, Ari. I did an accountability call this morning at 7 a.m. and they sang me happy birthday, my Bright Lifers. And then I did a Facebook Live at 11 and checked in with them again. And now I'm here with them tonight. And then I don't know if you saw this, but my team put together a website. It's happybirthday.susanpeircethompson.com. And
I didn't see that, no.
Steven, my IT genius, right? He pimped out my normal like headshot, right? And changed my suit color to like purple pinstripes and photoshopped a Prince lapel pin onto there and a tiara. Yeah, and like purple balls in the background. And then my team freaking sent this out to my list and was like, wish Susan happy birthday. I actually think they sent it out to 5% of the list, but that got 2,000 people to say happy birthday in some form or another on there. It was so I spent the reading these comments. I was like, wow, yeah, it was really sweet. That's
cool. I need to check that out.
He's like, I don't know if I'll be able to top that next year. He's already thinking like, I don't know if I can top that next year. Anyway, yeah, my team is sweet. So, hey everyone, welcome to our live stream. Yay, yay, yay. One thing you will notice is that Ari and I can't stop talking to each other. When we get going, we can't stop. We have a hard time having a conversation that lasts less than 2 hours. And we geek out on science. That's just
you're gonna scare people off by saying that.
No, my people are like, oh, we had a 4-hour coaching call the other day.
Oh, nice. Well, let's tell them it's going to be an 8-hour call then. Maybe that'll get people excited.
I did one of those. For the fall food launch. Yeah. And someone wrote in angry. She's like, Susan Peirce Thompson is incredibly unhealthy. She didn't take a bathroom break that whole time. And she water.
That's quite a thing to accuse somebody of being unhealthy for. Right?
But then I had to send a message out to my tribe saying, I don't know if I had pictures of it. I don't think I did, but I just said, like, I had 4 coffee cups of pee. I was peeing in coffee cups in my office at the university while I was doing that 8-hour coaching call. Anyway.
I'm gonna take like 6 bathroom breaks during this call, just so you know, to make sure that nobody accuses me of being unhealthy for that reason.
Right? So welcome everybody. We're so glad you're here. And the chat thread is blowing up. Hi, everyone. And what we're going to do is it's going to be totally informal, totally casual. We're here to answer your questions about Ari's course, the Energy Blueprint. He's run that course before. David and I signed up for it the first time he ran it. It's amazing. We're going to talk a little bit about what's in that course. I want to get Ari talking about some stuff that he shared with me on a phone call back in February. David and I were driving down to Florida with our kids for a winter break vacation. And I grabbed Ari on the phone and he was all like a buzz with this like ebook that he was writing and this science he'd just learned. And he'd just like talked to me about it for 2 hours. And so Ari, I want to see how much of it I can actually get right. Because we haven't talked about it since, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so I want to see like if I can, because that was February, that was a while ago. And so I'll repeat back what I think I heard you say, and then you can school about what I missed.
Sounds good.
And that's some of the stuff that's, that your Energy Blueprint course addresses. And then we'll totally do Q&A. Yeah, Denise, I don't know what to say about your audio. Just go ahead and keep refreshing. And then if you really can't get it solved, go to support.brightlineeating.com. Actually, Stephen always has this great pinned post that he puts at the top. It's like, if you can't get audio or video, refresh your screen. And if that doesn't work, go to support.brightlineeating.com and ask for help there. All right, just pinned a post.
Claire, I just want to respond to one comment here from Claire saying, Susan said you talk about the latest science on fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. Yes, more broadly, fatigue in general, and this corresponds to chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, but also lesser forms of fatigue. You know, I kind of like to think of things on a spectrum. So, you know, a lot of people think in these very distinct categories with names on them: chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, adrenal fatigue, burnout syndrome, you know, these types of names. And when you actually go into the science and you look at the symptomology, you find that there's this huge overlap in the symptoms between a lot of these different conditions. So they're not really as distinct as maybe some people imagine them. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about science that's relevant to those conditions, but it's also relevant to people who just have more mild or moderate forms of fatigue and haven't necessarily been diagnosed with some particular syndrome.
That's actually what he was talking to me about as I was driving down to Florida. So that's actually what that is.
It's a little lead in to some of it.
Yeah. And Dawn wants to know if I'm going to eat any pie or cake today. Seriously, she posted, "Happy birthday, Susan. So will you eat anything?" P-E-I-A. I don't know if she means pie today, cake. No, I did not. So my 5-year-old made me breakfast this morning, and Daddy had to like school her. Mommy eats specific things. So she made oatmeal, 1 ounce, strawberries, 6 ounces, and 2 ounces of nuts. She put cinnamon on it. She made me some green tea and some black Good Earth tea. And she put my little supplements that Ari's getting me to take, what's it called? Ashwagandha and some, anyway, my little pile of like Ari pills right there. All supplements are awful except the ones Ari recommends. That's my there are some that are scientifically grounded. I hear about it from Ari. And then water, W-O-D-E-R. She left me a thing of water and she wrote a checklist. That's what I had for breakfast. For lunch, I had. And
she wrote W-O-D-E-R?
Yeah.
Nice. That's cute.
T-E. Yeah. And she had like oatmeal, and she checked off everything off. And then she said, "Love Maya." And she checked off the love too. Like, love
nice.
Maya. So
check. Nailed that one.
Totally. And for lunch, I had 6 ounces of cherries, and it was like on the go. I think I had 2.5 ounces of nuts. I was back to just nuts just because I was Russian, and 6 ounces of cucumber, those English cucumbers. I just shoved them in a bag, and some peppers. And then I went to Aladdin's tonight for dinner and had lentil soup and a big fat salad. That's what I ate today. Okay. Nice. My kids ate cake on my behalf. I didn't have any cake. All right. Hey, everyone, if you have questions and you really want us to hear, make sure that you mark them with the question thing. Hover your cursor over the top of your thing and like mark it as a question. It should come up big and red in the chat thread. So should we get started, Ari? Should we talk about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Should I do it? Should I try to see what I can recreate from that conversation?
Yes, by all means.
All right. I'm nervous, dude, because I want you to respect my mind here. So let's see what
I do. Hey, I would be nervous if you were quizzing me on your material too.
Okay. So here's what I remember you saying. I remember you saying, "Susan, I'm pretty like pumped. I'm writing a new book. You've already written a couple, right? Best-selling books. And you said, I've been digging into this adrenal fatigue thing. And the thing is that there's this story with adrenal fatigue. And by the way, adrenal fatigue has all the same symptoms pretty much as chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. Like they're getting different names, but really it's kind of the same story. People show up with the same presentation of symptoms.
We can talk more about the details around that too, because there's kind of an interesting story around that. Yeah.
Okay. And the story with adrenal fatigue is someone gets stressed and a bunch of cortisol gets released. And then the adrenal glands get tired of producing so much cortisol if the stress continues. And then the cortisol sort of tanks and the adrenals get fatigued. And what you said is, I'm looking at PubMed at adrenal fatigue and there's no evidence for it. And the medical community has said there is no evidence for adrenal fatigue. It does not exist, but people are showing up fatigued. And so the alternative doctors are like, oh yeah, there's adrenal fatigue. And the regular doctors are like, yeah, this doesn't exist. it's true that people are fatigued, but what's not the case is that there's any evidence that the adrenals are getting fatigued. What if you look at the literature, someone who presents with symptoms of adrenal fatigue is as likely to have high cortisol as normal cortisol as low cortisol. And there is a correlation of like people who've been wiped out in bed for like 2 years. Like they're just then they have low cortisol, but it actually looks like that's an effect, not a cause. Like there's something else happened and that tanked their cortisol because it doesn't at the beginning of their constellation of symptoms. And basically, doctors are like, they keep diagnosing people with adrenal fatigue as if their adrenals are getting fatigued. And there's no evidence for it, like at all.
Well, we have to be, when you say that, we have to be clear which doctors we're talking about. So there's two general camps on this subject. So there's mainstream conventional medical doctors, and then there's alternative health practitioners, and there's a wide variety of
naturopaths, osteopaths. If you were on the Bright Light First Call this morning, those were the two words I forgot. I was like, those doctors, what are they called? Naturopaths and osteopaths. Those are names. Anyway.
Yeah. And there are various other people more in the alternative medicine type of career path. So even massage therapists or acupuncturists or, Chinese medicine specialists who might talk of adrenal fatigue. In general, people who are coming from a more holistic health background, a more naturalistic health background, tend to go towards the adrenal fatigue camp. Mm-hmm. And, I also consider myself someone who's more of a proponent of naturalistic lifestyle strategies and holistic lifestyle strategies. So I'm actually coming from that camp. Mm-hmm. And in general, I was kind of operating within the adrenal fatigue paradigm for a long time too. And because that's what everybody talks about. I mean, literally thousands, it seems like the whole naturalistic community is all talking about adrenal fatigue. Yeah. There have been books written about it.
I was diagnosed with it.
Right.
When my thyroid tanked back in 2003, she's like, you got thyroid issues and you got adrenal fatigue. We got to bump up the adrenals. Here's some DHEA. Here's some B vitamins. We got to support your thyroid. You'll be good to go. And I got a lot better. Whatever she did, it helped.
Right. So there are thousands of articles online on this subject. There are thousands of, very scientific looking graphs and so on. And yet, despite the fact that there are thousands of articles on this subject, there are dozens of books on the subject. There are thousands of practitioners diagnosing hundreds of thousands of people with this condition. If you actually look at the scientific evidence, there's basically nothing there. And if anybody doubts that, if anybody questions that, feel free to go to PubMed.com right now, type in adrenal fatigue, see how many studies you find. And here's the deal, just for a reference for comparison. If you want to try that same activity with any other medical condition that you could possibly think of. Depression, right. Anxiety, Addison's disease, which is a real adrenal related disease, celiac disease, Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, whatever you can think of. Mm-hmm. Type it in there and you'll quickly find hundreds or thousands of studies on that subject. And do the same search for adrenal fatigue, you'll find basically nothing. So how is it that there are thousands of articles on the subject and dozens of books on the subject? And by the way, none of those books on the subject of adrenal fatigue actually cite any studies on adrenal fatigue, which is pretty remarkable. I mean, you can literally go through the book and not find a single reference on any study on adrenal fatigue.
Which you've done, right? Because that's the kind of guy you are. Yeah. Yes,
absolutely. Well, PubMed will tell you how many studies are on the subject. So anybody can find it for free in 5 seconds. So basically what I'm saying is there is this massive disconnect going on with all these, just massive amounts of people who are talking about adrenal fatigue and promoting this idea and diagnosing people with it, and then the science. And then, so the other camp here is the conventional MDs. And if you talk to a conventional MD on the subject, they'll tell you straight, point blank, there's no such thing as adrenal fatigue. It's made up nonsense. it's alternative medicine quackery. There's no scientific evidence for it. So there's this kind of battle going on between these two camps.
Right.
And the alternative people are saying, no, we see people in our clinic who have fatigue, so we know this is going on, right?
Help them, right? We do stuff and they get better. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Folks, I'm going to disenable the chat box because so many questions are coming up, and I know that that's going to make me and Ari stressed. We will get to your questions. I'm just going to disable it for right now, just while we're talking, and then we'll go back and answer the questions that have already been asked, and then we will re-enable the chat box. So just hold tight on that. But yeah, so and people feel like when the conventional doctors are saying adrenal fatigue is made up quackery nonsense, that they're being told, yeah, you're not really so tired. Like,
right.
Right.
And it's also looked at by some people in the more naturalistic community like, oh, these doctors don't know what they're talking about. They just don't understand the evidence around adrenal fatigue. The reality is there's no evidence. So here's, basically when I originally started this, my goal was to write a book on adrenal fatigue and to write a book like basically outlining the science around adrenal fatigue. I was going to call it the science-based guide to adrenal fatigue. So what do all the studies say are the causes of adrenal fatigue from, a truly evidence-based perspective? And then what are the most evidence-based treatments and effective treatments for it? And just like compiling all the science on there. So I went to PubMed and I was shocked to not really find anything, right? So at that point, I kind of started to realize something was off. And then because there was no real evidence on adrenal fatigue, I had to do something else to get to the bottom of this. So what I realized is that there actually is some relevant scientific literature. There are several different conditions that actually are legitimate, recognized, and accepted medical conditions that are kind of relevant to this idea of adrenal fatigue. So one of them is called burnout syndrome. One of them is called exhaustion disorder. And there's also some literature around chronic stress and like looking at cortisol levels and adrenal function. And there's also some relevant literature around chronic fatigue syndrome, looking at the relationship between that and cortisol levels and what's called HPA axis function, which is hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis function. So these kind of the areas in the brain that regulate the adrenals. So basically and I'm summarizing this in like a couple sentences. The reality is this is like months of going through hundreds of studies. But I went through all of these bodies of literature on the subject. And basically what the bottom line was, when you get to all through the entire body of evidence, and I'm literally talking about every study in existence that has ever done anything related to any type of chronic stress or fatigue and the relationship of that and cortisol levels. Okay. Every study in existence. Here's what I found. About 25% of them showed that people with fatigue or burnout or chronic stress have high cortisol levels. About 25% of the studies showed that people with burnout or fatigue have low cortisol levels. And then the remaining 50% is actually a little more than 50%. The majority of the studies could not detect any difference whatsoever between people with fatigue or exhaustion or burnout and normal, healthy, non-fatigued people. Okay, so just imagine this scenario for a second. Imagine that you were looking at like blood sugar levels to diagnose diabetes and type 2 diabetes. And let's say that you were looking for like some kind of biomarker, which just means like a diagnostic, something that can detect in your blood to tell whether you have something or not, just in case anyone doesn't know what a biomarker is. So imagine that they took a group of type 2 diabetics and they found that 25% of them had high blood sugar, 25% of them had low blood sugar, and 50% of them had normal blood sugar that was the same as a normal non-diabetic person. Okay. What would happen in that scenario? If you're operating from a scientific perspective, you know exactly what would happen.
Well, yeah, it would mean that blood sugar is not relevant to diabetes.
Yeah, they would throw out that marker. They'd immediately say, this is not a valid marker for diagnosing. And in fact, there are actually numerous studies and systematic literature reviews, which are reviews of the entire body of evidence, which have concluded exactly that about cortisol, that it's not a valid biomarker. It cannot diagnose burnout. It cannot diagnose fatigue. It's not useful as a diagnostic marker. And there is no relationship. There's no clear relationship between cortisol levels or adrenal dysfunction or HPA axis dysfunction and fatigue. They can't detect a relationship. That's what the science actually says on this topic.
Right.
So that's like kind of the first thing, you know, so.
Can I throw in an anecdote here?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking of myself over the last 3 years. And I think, you know, this webinar here, live stream, is filled with people in my tribe. Like, people know I've been working a little too hard. You know that, right? And like, there've been moments where because I have wicked Hashimoto's and I see my functional medicine practitioner often, and she's super alternative, and she tests my cortisol levels. And like, I remember after the Food Freedom launch of 2015, like, I'd moved into a hotel. I'd been sleeping an hour a day for 10 days. You know, I was a fucking wreck. Like, I was a wreck, and I got my blood work done, and I went in and my cortisol levels were normal. Right. And she's like, you must have really good coping mechanisms. And I'm like, I do, actually.
Yeah. And
very burned out. Right. Like, I'm burned out, you know, and she's like patting me on the back because I've got good coping mechanisms. Like, anyone who knows me knows I was a fucking wreck, you know? Yeah.
And so it's so interesting that you bring that up, because every time I tell people the science on this, I get stories like that. I get people coming out of the woodwork who are ready to admit that they've seen some results that really conflict with the idea of adrenal fatigue. So,
like, I was on the phone with my life coach, and I couldn't even have a session because I would just sob the whole time.
Right. So I just talked with Wendy Myers, for example, who runs a site called Live to 110. And she actually is another kind of specialist in the energy and fatigue space. And if you listen to the podcast I just did with her, and I tell her kind of the science that I just told you, one of the things she says is, wow, this makes so much sense, because I literally went for like 2 years where I was sleeping like 9-10 hours a night, to completely like lowering my stress levels, eating such a perfect diet, like doing everything right. And then I went to get my cortisol test, and they told me I had low cortisol and I had stage 3 adrenal fatigue. and I felt great, and I had been taking perfect care of myself, and I was totally energetic. Right. So part of the rub here, kind of the deal is that the game that they're playing is rigged. And what I mean by that is they've created a model of adrenal fatigue that says, oh, at the beginning you have high cortisol, and then you kind of go through a period where it's more normal, and then it goes to low. Right. And so if you show up and you're complaining of a symptom like fatigue and other symptoms like sugar cravings, having trouble sleeping, you know, things like that, and they test your cortisol, which seems like this very scientific thing, whether you have high, low, or normal cortisol, you're probably going to get diagnosed with adrenal fatigue.
Right.
If you're seeing a practitioner who believes in adrenal fatigue, you're going to get diagnosed with it, almost a guarantee.
Right. Totally. Okay, so what's the solution for those people who are fatigued? Like, what actually does matter?
Yeah, well, so here's the part that took me a long time to figure out. Can you hear me okay?
You just froze for me.
Okay.
Here's the part that took me a long time. Now you're back. Go ahead.
Okay. So after I debunked this whole thing of adrenal fatigue and realized that there wasn't really any science on it, to be honest, at that point, I was actually confused, because adrenal fatigue is the main paradigm. I mean,
and people are fatigued, right? There is this thing, this burnout thing, this chronic fatigue thing, this fibromyalgia thing, right?
Absolutely. So yes. So I also don't agree with like the conventional doctors who generally don't really make any serious attempt to address this issue at all. You know, they'll debunk adrenal fatigue, but they're not actually like creating some kind of plan to actually help people struggling with fatigue and trying to increase their energy levels, right? So I'm in this position now, if you can picture this, where like I'm kind of in between these two camps, and I don't really agree with either of them. And there's no science to support adrenal fatigue, but I'm not really on board with the drugs and surgery model. Like, I don't see that as offering much of value to people struggling with fatigue. So I'm in a position now where I'm trying to figure out the true causes of fatigue, which is not adrenal fatigue, and figure out how to help these people.
Now, let me just ask you a question, because I've known you for a while now. When was this time that you were doing this research? You were looking at PubMed and stuff. Was this before, as you were creating the Energy Blueprint course before, or is this like since I've met you, or when were you going through that?
So it was actually a couple years ago, 3 years ago, when I first realized that there wasn't really any evidence on adrenal fatigue. But at that time, I almost ignored it because I didn't really have a better explanation. Like, I didn't really understand what the true causes were. I just understood that there wasn't really any science to support adrenal fatigue. Yeah. So when I talked to you not too long ago was when I really started to put the pieces together. And that was partly due to some incredible research, pretty new research that's come out of a lab at UCSD, University of California, San Diego, from a researcher named Robert Navio. And
I'm going to write down his name this time. We were driving last time so that I can take a look at.
Yeah. And by the way, what I didn't tell you, I don't think I've told you yet, is I actually went to his lab. And I did tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was freaking awesome.
And he doesn't do interviews. You're like, come be on my podcast. And
yes.
You're like,
oh yeah, there's like no one I'd rather interview than him on the subject of fatigue, and he doesn't freaking do interviews.
Right. Spell his last name. Naviaux. Ah, Navio. Okay.
So he runs a lab for mitochondrial medicine. For those of you who are not familiar with that term, mitochondria are the energy generators in our cells. There's a little bit more to that story. We can get into that, but basically, for the way that most people know of the mitochondria, they're the powerhouse of the cell, the battery, the energy generator, whatever you want to call it. They're in charge of producing energy that the cells run on. And without
it's going to regulate your constipation or lack thereof, your sex drive, your like it's everything, your temperature, right? It's like it regulates all of your bodily systems, like everything, because every single system in the body needs mitochondria for those cells to function.
Yes. So yeah, to just add to that, basically you are nothing but a collection of cells. So you as a person, you're just a bunch of cells. You're trillions of cells. And you have organ systems like your brain and your nervous system, your heart and your circulatory system, your muscles, your skeletal system. You have all these systems of your body, but they're ultimately all composed of cells. And guess what cells need to do whatever it is they do? Whether it's your bone, your brain, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, whatever. They all need energy. And all of that energy comes from mitochondria. So without mitochondria, cells die within seconds, and ultimately you would die, or you're at least going to be very fatigued if you have poorly functioning mitochondria. So here's what this guy's research has centered on. So he came out with some research called the cell danger response. And the cell danger response basically told us that mitochondria are actually much more than we've all realized. We've all thought of them as this, like I said, the energy generator, the powerhouse of the cell, and that's true. But basically what he's shown is there's this whole other role of mitochondria that is just as important as their role in energy generator, as the energy generator of our cells. And what that role is actually cell defense. So they're in charge of detecting when there's some kind of danger present in our body, and then helping our bodies to activate the systems to defend against that threat. Now, that might seem like an obscure kind of idea, but here's the deal. Let me kind of make this very practical for you. Think of the last time that you got sick with like just a cold or a flu or something like that. What's one of the key symptoms of getting sick?
Fatigue.
Fatigue, right. So here's basically what he's shown. Mitochondria have two different modes. They have energy mode and they have defense mode. And when you activate defense mode, energy mode shuts off, okay, or gets turned down. So the more you activate defense mode, the more energy mode gets turned off. So in this context, let's say you have a cold or a flu. Basically what that's doing is, what's going on is your mitochondria are detecting that there is a danger present, in this case, an infection, virus or bacteria, and they're turning off energy production. Okay, and that's part of a coordinated system of responses that's designed to help protect you from harm. And just to paint the picture of why that happens, some viruses and bacteria will actually attach themselves to the mitochondria in your cells and actually use the energy being produced by the mitochondria to fuel their own replication and spread throughout your body. So if you understand that, you can immediately understand why mitochondria shutting down energy production is actually a really intelligent process that protects you, right? So by shutting down, and they also help seal off the cell to prevent the spread of the infection to neighboring cells. Basically what that's doing is it's trying to seal things off and prevent that threat from becoming a bigger threat and spreading, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can picture it in warfare, right? Like if the enemy is coming, don't let them get your supplies, your energy generators, shut it down temporarily, hide, don't let them come take over, the production of resources. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, and kind of following on that same line of thinking, like if somebody throws poison gas in the streets, around your house, like if you just continue living your life as normal, like, oh, I think I'll go for a walk outside right now. I think I'll open the windows and let some fresh air in, right? Mm-hmm. If you just live life as normal, you're going to die really quickly, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you do if there's poison gas in the streets? Well, you close the doors, you close the windows, and you sit inside your house doing nothing, and you wait for that threat to go away. Mm-hmm. Until there's no more danger. And when it goes away, then you can open the windows, you can go for a walk outside, do all the things like you normally do. So that's what mitochondria are doing. As soon as there's a danger present, they shut down energy production and they go into defense mode. Now, this guy, Robert Navio, has also done research where he's actually looked at people in chronic fatigue syndrome. And he's found that this is exactly what's going on. Basically, their mitochondria are shut down because there is some kind of danger present in the body that is causing the mitochondria to shut down and keeping them locked in this shutdown defense mode instead of energy mode. So if you understand all that, basically what I'm suggesting to you is that there's a spectrum of energy. So on the one hand, you have a young, healthy, fit person with just boundless energy, just bouncing off the walls. And on the other hand, you have somebody who is debilitated with severe chronic fatigue syndrome and can barely get up and walk 50 feet. So that's the spectrum. Now, if you're struggling with mild fatigue, you're somewhere in here, right? You're kind of towards the fatigued end of the spectrum. So if you picture that spectrum, basically the key is this. Your level of energy or fatigue corresponds pretty much directly with the degree that your mitochondria are either switched into energy mode or defense mode. So that seesaw, that teeter-totter that's going on is what's controlling your energy levels. And so the goal then is if you understand that your energy levels are proportional to the kind of environment that your mitochondria are sensing, whether they're sensing dangers or whether they're sensing a safe environment. The goal now is to get rid of the danger signals and send the body safety signals so that the mitochondria can switch back on into energy mode. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And you talked about some of this stuff at the Bright Line Eating Family Reunion, and I'm still thinking I'm still microwaving in my plastic containers. I need to buy Pyrex. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it totally makes sense.
Well,
toxins, for anyone who doesn't get the reference there, toxins in the system are one of the things that put you in defense mode, right? And I've been doing a big poo-poo to the whole toxin thing for a long time. Doesn't matter. I eat healthy, leave me alone. And Ari's basically convinced me that, maybe my Hashimoto's antibodies are so high, yeah.
Yeah. So here's the interesting part about that. Robert Navio is actually going to publish another piece of research later this year. He asked me not to share too many details of this until it actually is published. But basically, he's going to show how lots of different chronic diseases are actually related to this cell danger response. Almost every type of chronic disease of lifestyle is related to the cell danger response, not just fatigue. Fatigue is actually a more general symptom that it can result of just mitochondrial dysfunction and shutdown. But that same thing, that same kind of state of physiology can also result in many different types of diseases as well.
Does inflammation do it? Is inflammation something that switches the mitochondria into defense mode?
Yeah. So I brought up infections, the idea of a cold or a flu. That's only one trigger, one potential trigger of the cell danger response. Okay. You mentioned toxins. That's another big one. And chronic inflammation is another factor that will shut down mitochondria. There are lots of different...
No flour, everyone. Get that inflammation out of your system. No sugar, no flour is one of the best ways to do it. Just saying. It
absolutely is. Yeah. So there are many other layers to this story as well. So even intense physical stressors can cause this. So for example, over-exercise will actually shut down your mitochondria. If you exercise way too intensely, way beyond your body's capacity for fitness, there's research that will actually show that for days after, your mitochondria are operating at about 50% capacity of what they normally operate at. So
are you listening? Just saying.
Yeah. So
whoa. Yeah, he knows. Like my dad's whatever he is, 70. What are you, dad? 76 or something. And okay, just saying, Ari, he can do 3 sets of pull-ups of like 20, 24, 25 pull-ups, 3 sets in a row at 76. Dude's ripped. Awesome. He spends a lot of time at the gym. And he's noticing, like, now that he's in his 70s, like, because he likes to push it, and he's noticing, like, how much now can I push it without wiping myself out, and it's like this dance. And Dave and I talk a lot about, well, not a lot, but we mentioned like my dad and his workouts and like, what, is he pushing too hard or is it awesome? I mean, I love how fit my dad is. It's awesome. But yeah, it's a big thing. Like you got to translate it, and it changes with age, right?
Yeah, for sure. Now, I want to be clear. I'm a huge advocate of exercise, but doing it at the wrong dose, like any good medicine is quite harmful. You start to get side effects. So another common one is prescription drugs and over-the-counter drugs. If you look at the research and if you're on any prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs, I would strongly recommend Googling whatever drug you're on and the words mitochondrial dysfunction or mitochondrial damage, because there are actually lists online compiled by institutes for mitochondrial medicine that compile lists of the specific compounds that have shown to be toxic to mitochondria when taken long term. And you'd probably be shocked to learn that it's like over 70% of prescription and over-the-counter drugs are actually toxic to the mitochondria when taken long term.
So all those people who are like, I don't like to take an aspirin, you know what I mean? Like, or whatever, like there's something to that. Like, just don't, if you can, don't take it,
Yeah. And certain ones are more or less harmful than others. There are certain ones that are really toxic and really bad. So if you're on a particular type of drug that has shown to be toxic to mitochondria, talk to your physician about alternatives that are not toxic or weaning off, or something like that. I'm not going to tell you to just go off your drugs. I can't give you that advice. It's obviously context specific and, relevant, it's individual depending on your context. But in general, try not to be on something that's toxic to your mitochondria. Really, really important.
Now, when you say that there's like societies for mitochondrial whatever that have lists about the prescription drugs and mitochondrial dysfunction or mitochondrial damage, it makes it sound like it's a very established thing. And on the other hand, it also you've made it sound like the mitochondria thing is like brand new, that there's this one guy at UC San Diego who's doing some cutting edge research. So what is that society or whatever, what have they been thinking about mitochondria and like how is the old and the new kind of coming together here?
Yeah, great question. So mitochondria have obviously been around for a long time, People have known about mitochondria for 100 years, and we've known that they play a very integral role in energy production in our cells. And there's lots of research around specific things that will damage mitochondria.
Okay.
Okay. So that's that. All that's not new, not controversial. It's all very well established. What's new is the understanding that mitochondria are not just energy generators, and that they actually are not just these sort of mindless automatons that take in carbs and fat and produce ATP, produce cellular energy, and just they're like this machine that just goes like on and on and on. But they're actually extremely sensitive, exquisitely sensitive to the kind of environment they're in. And they sense what's going on in their environment, and they actually control a huge portion of our physiology based on what they're sensing. And so they control whether they're producing energy, they're in that energy mode, or they're switched into a defense mode. And it triggers all kinds of different physiology, including all sorts of different factors in the bloodstream, including inflammation and oxidative damage, which is damage from free radicals, and including changes in hormone levels as well. So all of these things are modified and controlled in large part by the mitochondria. So that's the new paradigm that's emerging. That mitochondria are not just these mindless machines that produce energy, but they're actually exquisitely sensitive, and they're actually kind of the master controllers of a lot of our physiology. That's the new paradigm, and that's the new research. But the thing is that the research generally indicates that it takes about 10 to 15 years for new discoveries to actually be incorporated into mainstream thinking. So this research has just come out in the last couple of years. It's probably going to be another decade or two before mainstream MDs are talking about things in this paradigm.
Right. So it sounds almost like mitochondria are analogous to the pituitary gland, of like sort of just the master controller. Like they're in every cell, in the body, and what they're thinking, feeling, doing, like how they're sensing the environment has everything. It's like the master switches and the master sort of controllers of how, of energy or lack thereof, health, wellness or lack thereof, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just to add one more point onto that, in your pituitary gland itself is actually filled with mitochondria. So even that, the pituitary gland is not just functioning on its own. It's also influenced by what's going on in the mitochondria inside that gland.
Right. Okay, cool. So, so how does your energy blueprint course incorporate this stuff? Because I mean, your course covers here. Let's see if I can remember. Your course covers stuff about diet, and we'll cover in a little bit how bright line eating dovetails, because Ari and I have put together a really nice document that talks about basically how when you're doing bright line eating, you're covering your bases pretty well with diet. And interestingly, Ari, we've started to do a little bit of intermittent fasting explorations in our Bright Lifers group. I think you're frozen for me. Are you frozen? Yeah, you're frozen for me. I don't know if you're frozen for other people, but. Oh, there you're back. Nope, now you're frozen again. You just froze to a different expression.
You were kind of cutting in and out for me a little bit. I don't know how the connection was for everyone else.
Ah, okay.
But
now you're back, I think.
Yeah. So the question.
Kind of bad reception again. How's my reception?
Can you?
Nope, not good. Let me just go make sure David didn't decide to start streaming something. Just give me a second real quick. I don't know about on your end if anything changed, but suddenly we got really bad. Whoa, he's gone. Okay, he's gone. And I'll go. Ah, did you just refresh your page? Ah, you look back now. Are you back?
Yeah. Can you see and hear me okay?
Now I can, I think.
Can you see and hear me? Yeah.
No. 50-50.
Okay. Hopefully,
maybe when your neighbors start downloading
hearing us. Okay. It's a little better now.
I'm gonna unmute the chat thread so people can tell us whether they. I'm thinking that my signal's okay, and then it's yours that's not, but I'm not sure. So I just enabled the chat box. You guys tell us whether you are experiencing trouble seeing and hearing me, or just Ari, so we can try to figure out if it's just on his end or if it's on my end too. Ari is frozen. You are fine, Susan. Susan is fine and Ari is frozen. Okay. All right, Ari, there's something going on your end. Oh, now there's two of you. Okay. All right, I'm disenabling the chat box because we just heard the same thing from 100 people, but thank you for all weighing in. So I'm not going to go bothering David. Okay, so I'm going to just try on my own to generate from memory the list of what's in the erotic blueprint course. Ari covers diet, and then he covers exercise. This is all from a perspective of improving energy levels, like what kind of exercise, how often. You're back.
Okay. It looks like the connection's better now.
Yes, it does. Yes, awesome. Okay, and I'm talking about your energy blueprint course because I'm curious how the mitochondria stuff fits in there. You cover diet, you cover exercise, you cover circadian rhythm, you cover autophagy, you cover hormesis. And I know that exercise is a form of hormesis, I know. And there's autophagy in the diet stuff, I know. But how does the mitochondrial stuff fit into all this, and describe the energy blueprint course, like for people who are interested, because it's so brilliant and you have so many references and there's so much. Like David's been pimping out our house. We've got like orangey lights, you know, instead of like now it's like if there's a bright white light around at dark, we're like, oh, what is that awful bluish light? Get that out of our face. And you know, we're changing here. And I'm bursting with energy. Like I'm saddled with a ridiculous hypothyroidism condition, and I'm freaking pumping from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. So tell us more about your, because I think registration closes tomorrow, right? People really don't have much more time to make their decision. So how does all this stuff we've been talking to fit into your energy blueprint course?
Yeah. So to be clear, we only covered kind of a few different potential ways that the mitochondria, a number of ways. To give you a couple other examples. So circadian rhythm, which is our biological clock in our brains, which is how our brains regulate our sleeping and waking, including our energy and different hormones, is very, very sending from the environment. Depending on the light exposure habits, circadian rhythm, which is, think of it like chronically living in a state of like mild jet lag.
Okay, all right. Your audio is so not great. Why don't you try shutting off your video? We all love to see you, but I'm thinking that if we can just hear your voice, it might be better. Like just that audio would come better on bandwidth, because you're cutting in and out so much that we can't actually hear you, which is a bummer.
I move to a Wi-Fi router and see if that'll help.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Just give me 1 sec.
Okay. Oh, I can't wait to get Ari to answer some of these questions. We should probably move to Q&A here soon, because there's a lot of good stuff in here. Jan says, isn't oatmeal a grain? It is in Bright Line Eating, Jan. And I do believe that the paleo folks and all those folks would consider oatmeal a grain. Still as a grain. Fruit. Yali says fruit. Yes, fruit. I'm just looking through the chat thread here to keep myself occupied. Carolyn, I can answer your question. Carolyn says, hi, Susan. Happy birthday. Hi, Carolyn. Hi, Ari. I've signed up for Ari's program, but in light of last week's call and diagnosis and my list of meds, should I be doing this program right now? Please help. Thank you so much. Carolyn, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. I would really sort of hunker down and focus on eating all your food and keeping your bright lines bright. I think that throwing anything else into the mix, and Ari's program is such a wealth of information, and it's going to really sort of pull you into new strategies, new things to try. And just in my opinion, I think it's the wrong focus, the wrong energy for you right now. For anyone else who's wondering, Carolyn and I had when I said that we had a 4-hour coaching call recently, Carolyn was a part of that, and I worked with her for a long time, and she's got some specific stuff going on with her bright lines, and it's pretty intense and potentially life-threatening. So normally for just about anyone, I would say Ari's course is like a really great way to go. But Carolyn, for you, my dear, just in particular, because of now, life is long, right? You'll have time to pimp out your energy. Right now, I would really focus on taking care of yourself. This is a bunny slipper time. Bunny slippers, eat your food, get your support around that. And I just want you to know, Carolyn, also that I have your phone number in my phone, and I'm going to be calling you soon. Yeah. So, all right, Ari, are you back? Except now we can't hear you. Did you mute yourself? That's what happened to me earlier. I had no audio. Nope. You're silent, just like I was. Yuck. I had to restart my computer to get it to work. Oh, where are we? It's 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. I miss living in California. There's something about, especially since I started doing bright line eating and I like to get up early, having all the good stuff and so late. Just, I don't watch much TV, but when I do, it's for something like Monday Night Football or the Academy Awards or something. And like these webinars and stuff, trying to catch people in their evening time, which means 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I miss being in California with Ari. Ari's in San Diego. Are you there? I think
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah. I think we're back in the game, yo.
Thank God. Right. Sorry about that.
Sorry
I don't know what's going on.
Thanks for your patience. Erase, 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 erase. Those 10 minutes of your life didn't just happen. All right. So your energy blueprint course, I'll stop talking. You talk.
Yeah. So basically the central problem of fatigue is mitochondrial shutdown. So the whole course is about getting the mitochondria out of defense mode and shifting the mitochondria back into high energy mode. So there's 6 steps.
Growing more of them, right? So it's not just taking the ones that you've got and shutting and turning them. It's like growing more of them and making them bigger too, right?
Yes. Well, that's a big part of the story, and I'm intentionally trying to simplify a bit so that I don't overwhelm people here. But we'll get into that part of the story. So the first key step of this is to eliminate triggers of the cell danger response, to eliminate triggers of the things that are causing the mitochondria to actually go into defense mode. So we named off several of those potential things. So various kinds of toxins in the environment. So, BPA, phthalates, alcohol is a mitochondrial toxin, various kinds of prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, things in our kitchen, things in our air. Air pollution is a big factor linked with all kinds of diseases. In the water we drink, so things like, for example, fluoride, chlorine, and chlorine disinfection byproducts, which are in our water if we don't use proper filters on our water, those things are mitochondrial toxins. And there's research on all of this. Heavy metals in our food supply, all these things build up in small levels. We get little doses of them, of hundreds of different things on a daily basis, and they build up and they eventually shut down our mitochondria. So that's a huge factor. Now, even beyond just toxins, there are things like circadian rhythm disruption, which I was trying to get into around the biological clock, and kind of impaired sleep and there are various hormones that need to kind of get released. It's kind of like an orchestra of different hormones during the sleep process and kind of the wind up towards sleep. And when you have disturbed circadian rhythm, all of that gets disturbed and your mitochondria don't regenerate and repair properly overnight. So it becomes another source of damage towards the mitochondria. There are also various things in our diet. So, for example, inflammatory compounds, trans fats, oxidized vegetable oils, AGEs, which are advanced glycation end products. All these types of things can potentially cause damage and shut down to the mitochondria. So there's nutritional components, there's all these different lifestyle components. There's lots of different layers of factors that can potentially shut down your mitochondria. So getting rid of all those sources of problems, optimizing your circadian rhythm and sleep is critical. So then step 2 is the nutritional component, and eating healthy whole foods and unprocessing your diet is obviously a critical piece of that. There's also nutrient timing aspects of it. So the feeding and fasting window, what type of nutrients you're consuming at what point in the day also influence your mitochondrial function. As well as there are actually things you can do in your diet to physically repair the mitochondrial membranes. And it turns out that this is actually kind of the crux of what's triggering the mitochondria into defense mode and shutting down energy mode, is they're actually getting physically damaged by various things. And so when the membranes of the mitochondria, kind of like the little bubble around the mitochondria, gets physically damaged by whether it's toxins, whether it's whatever types of different things, whether it's inflammation or advanced glycation end products or whatever it is, when that's causing damage to those membranes, that's what triggers the mitochondria into defense mode. So a big part of fatigue is actually this physical structural damage to the mitochondrial membranes. So a big part of fixing fatigue and getting your energy back is that you actually have to repair the membranes, physically repair them. So there are actually nutritional strategies that you can use to do that. Number 3 is to heal and seal the gut. So it turns out that gut permeability or leaky gut is another factor that's been linked with chronic fatigue, and there's more and more research coming out that this is linked with a lot of different health conditions and is a pretty widespread, pervasive, common problem. And basically what this means is that there are little kind of gaps in the intestines that shouldn't be there. So substances which shouldn't be getting into your bloodstream are now leaking in. So undigested food particles is one, and this can cause various things like food intolerances and allergy-related symptoms, which can manifest in all sorts of ways, as fatigue, as skin conditions, as all sorts of stuff. And also toxins from specific kinds of bacteria in your intestines, and a particular type of toxin called endotoxin, which should normally just kind of pass through and end up in the toilet, ends up leaking into your bloodstream constantly. And endotoxin in the bloodstream has been linked with fat gain and obesity. It's been linked with fatigue. It's been linked with all kinds of nasty stuff. So healing and sealing the gut, having the strategies to actually fix leaky gut is another important layer of the story. The next one is to fix the liver and detox. So we talked about in step one, the idea of cleaning up your environment so that you're eliminating, the triggering of the cell danger response. You're preventing your mitochondria from going into defense mode. And doing that is that's the first step, right? Because if you constantly have triggers of that cell defense mode going on in your environment, it doesn't matter. You can do detox, you can eat the best diet in the world, you can do exercise programs, you can do circadian rhythm stuff. But if that stuff is still going on, you're not going to get very far, right? So that's one component. Now, the next component is addressing the fact that we also have built up lots of stores of various toxins in our body. So stimulating the three main detoxification pathways, the liver, the gut, and the skin, and actually getting that stuff out of our bodies, the stuff that's been building up in there for years or decades in some cases. We actually have to, we can get it out of our bodies. We can get it out of our mitochondria. So it's not just stuck in there, constantly shifting our mitochondria into defense mode. The next layer of the story is neuroscience. So it turns out that psychological stressors, things like anxiety, fear, even what are called adverse childhood events, they're called ACEs for short, ACE, all of those are also linked with chronic fatigue. So those are other potential sources of triggering the mitochondria into defense mode. So if people are listening and they have a history of, they were abused as a child, they suffered certain traumatic events, or they're struggling with depression or anxiety, or just they feel chronically stressed all the time, all of those things can potentially be triggers for mitochondrial shutdown and causes of fatigue. And even just that alone, just the psychological, emotional stuff is enough to cause chronic fatigue. So rewiring the brain through neuroscience techniques to get out of that chronic fear and defense mode is an important part of the story. And there are even programs that have been developed specifically around just that one factor. Their whole approach to treating chronic fatigue is just to address, the limbic system in the brain and kind of rewire what's going on as far as anxiety and fear. And just by addressing that alone, there's actually good research to show pretty profound benefits in people with chronic fatigue syndrome, for example. Even just regular old mindfulness-based therapies, meditation-based stuff is actually proven to be quite effective. So those are the first 5 steps. The last one, which is my favorite, is hormesis. And that is building your mitochondria bigger and stronger. So here's the important thing to know about that. It turns out that as we get older, our mitochondria shrink and they shrivel and they atrophy. So if you imagine if you've ever broken a bone or seen somebody who's broken a bone and had a cast on, when they get their cast off 6 weeks or 8 weeks later, all the muscles are all tiny, right? They've all shriveled up, they've atrophied. So that's actually what happens to our mitochondria when we don't use them and stimulate them. They shrink, they shrivel, they get weak, they get fragile. And when they're in that state, they actually are much more prone to being overwhelmed by stressors and being triggered into defense mode and shut down.
Interesting.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it's constantly affect them, yeah.
So that's how this concept of hormesis ties into the cell danger ones. It's that hormesis, the degree to which you are stimulating your mitochondria and growing bigger, stronger mitochondria, determines your resilience.
Yeah. Oh, you just froze again. But, you know, it makes so much sense because if you think about the huge range of human energy, I mean, and you're totally frozen, Ari, unfortunately. And you were on such a great roll there. We could hear you perfectly. And then you just totally froze. And you're still frozen. So, but I know you talk about this a lot, but I'd never thought of it this way until I met you. But it's a profound thought. When you think of human beings, the difference in energy levels between a 7-year-old boy with ADHD, let's say, who just can't even sit still. Like he's shaking his legs, you know, he's running around the room and like, you know, like I go with my kids outside and they just take off running. Like they can't even sit still. They gotta go. And then you think of, you know, someone who's 60, 70, 80 years old and 100 pounds overweight and they're sitting there on the couch and, you know, like they can't even move. They can't even get up the stairs. They can't even function. And Ari's gone, but he'll be back. Oh, this is one of the challenges of the online life. It's nice that we can all be together from all over the world. I'm gonna enable the chat box because we're gonna need to get to the Q&A here soon. We need to get to the Q&A. And hopefully Ari will be back in a hot second. I'm going to go mark some of these. How do you do that mark thing? Linda wants to know. Well, I was just able to click on a question on the left and mark it, but I think you have to hover your thing. Can anyone type into the chat box for Linda how you do the question mark thing? The question icon is on the message bar drop down box. The question icon is on the message bar drop down box. Thank you, Natalie. Shima says, love the Energy Blueprint podcast. Yeah, totally. It was really fun being on that. And yeah, Ari's, did I tell you guys? I don't know if I told you. I had a vision a little while ago, maybe a week ago, 10 days ago, of me and Ari on a stage, I guess. It was like a studio audience type stage doing a TV show together. Like, permanently, like an ongoing TV show, like Dr. Oz meets Ellen, but just all about the real science of health and weight loss and energy and, you know, debunking myths and, you know, which supplements to take and, you know, what kind of sauna should I get? And just all the questions between the two of us. We know so much and we have we have some overlap in our knowledge, but we have very complementary knowledge bases. Mine's much more in the behavioral psychology of like long-term compliance. Like how do you get people to actually do something and still be doing it 5 years later, 10 years later? And Ari is much more like, what does the science say today about this? You know, Ari is my go-to guy for all that whenever I have questions about science. Yeah, I could totally picture us doing a TV show together. It'd be really fun. I brought it up to Ari and he's like, yeah, Susan, I'm not into fame though. Like, why would we do that? And I said, dude, do you know how many people watch those episodes? Like millions. I mean, when is your email list going to get up to millions? When is mine going to get up to millions? We could reach so many people so quickly. And he's like, oh, well then that would be why to do it. Cause that's what we're both in it for is impact. Mary says, can I talk more about hormesis? I'm a bit confused about the whole thing. Yeah, Mary. So the idea is actually pretty simple because we all so understand it when it comes to exercise. Hormesis is when you stress the body and it gets stronger in response. Like if you work out really hard, you might be wiped out afterwards, but then you get a good night's sleep, you get a good couple meals in you, and suddenly you're healthier afterwards. That's what hormesis is, Mary. It's when temporary micro stressors to the body force the body to adapt and make itself stronger. So exercise isn't the only thing that does it. It's not the only hormetic stress. There's cold and heat, which is why soaking, and, into cold baths and then hot baths and back and forth and stuff is so healthy for you. There's, like altitude, like not enough oxygen. There's all kinds of hormetic stressors. it turns out that actually is the primary mechanism. The primary mechanism of the health of fruits and vegetables is the phytochemicals in them, not just the fiber and the nutrients, which are healthy too, but the stress of the chemicals in those fruits and vegetables. Our bodies evolved to actually vibe off those chemicals and actually become healthier as a result because of the stress, like exercise. So that I was just cherry picking through the Q&A, and someone asked a question that I could actually answer. So I thought,
beautiful.
Yeah.
And sorry, I cut out there for a second, lost my connection. Apologies for that. But thank you for explaining hormesis while I was gone.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So,
and I told them about the TV show idea too.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. Just
cool.
exciting. We also have a book we want to write together.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So back to this. So this concept of hormesis determines how big and strong your mitochondria are. And it also determines how many mitochondria you have. And all of that ultimately determines what I call your resiliency threshold, which is basically, are you someone that can handle stressors, which there are stressors all around us. We live in an environment that there's always stressors. So can your body and your mitochondria handle those stress and still maintain energy mode and be healthy and keep you healthy and strong and vital and energetic? Or are they getting overwhelmed and shut down? So that is largely determined. Your resiliency threshold is largely determined by your degree of hormesis, whether you've been stimulating and challenging your mitochondria in the face of these mild stressors, hormetic stressors, to keep them big and strong and healthy. Now, here's an important layer of that story. It turns out that between the ages of about 40 to 70, people lose, on average, about half of their mitochondrial capacity. Half.
Between 40 and 70.
Probably a lot of people listening to this are probably 50, 60, 70. Okay.
I'm 43 today, yo, so the slide is starting, baby. I feel it. Yeah, I'm on the slide. I'm going down. 40 to 70. Right? Ari is a spring chicken. What do you do? 32? 33? 33.
Yeah. Now,
40 to 70. Lose half.
Yep. Now, here's the important part of that story. That, although that occurs in the majority of people, it only occurs in people who do not regularly engage in hormesis. Okay, so by being one of those people who regularly engages in various types, and I strongly recommend doing more than just exercise, doing various types of hormesis in your life, you can prevent that from happening. You can be 70 and still have the mitochondrial function of somebody who's 40 or 30 or 20. Okay. And so that is all about hormesis. So I want to be clear to, there's this kind of paradigm especially in the naturalistic health community, that health can be something that you can get in a bubble. Like it's a matter of popping supplement pills and vitamins and minerals and removing the stress load and taking care of your sleep and things like that. All those things are important, but you cannot achieve health and vitality and energy without hormesis. It does not happen unless you have big, strong, healthy mitochondria. So,
you got to be stressing yourself. You got to be going for hard walks. You got to be going for hikes. You got to be out in the sun. You got to be, getting cold sometimes, getting hot sometimes. You got to be climbing up big mountains and experiencing lack of oxygen or holding your breath and practicing that.
And there's a system to this, and there are various types of hormetic stressors that are more or less appropriate, and there's ways to progress through the system. So, as an example, if somebody has debilitating chronic fatigue, it's actually a bad idea to start them with intense exercise, for example. Intense exercise will wipe them out and make them much worse. Yeah. So, hormesis, but at the same time, hormesis is actually extremely important for those people to get better. And they will have to do some type of hormesis to start building up their mitochondria. Otherwise, they're always going to have tiny, weak, little fragile mitochondria that aren't producing energy. But it has to be done in the right way. So you have to use gentler forms of hormesis and progress through this very systematically. So those are the 6 steps of the energy blueprint system. So eliminate the triggers of the cell danger response. Step 2 is optimize your diet and repair and regenerate your mitochondria. Step 3 is heal and seal the gut. Step 4 is detox your body. Step 5 is rewire your brain for energy mode. And step 6 is build bigger, stronger mitochondria. So that's the way the system works. And it's very important that things are done in that order.
Got it. Beautiful. It's a great course. Dave and I loved it. And I want the Q&A to talk more about that as well.
Yes.
Let's go and start asking questions here. I marked a bunch of them. Jane says, "Oh, Jane, you're killing me. So should I do bright line eating or the energy blueprint?" You can't ask that question. Well, the answer, Jane, is about like, well, okay, I'm curious what Ari's answer would be. My answer would be like, where's your pain point right now? Like if you're crazy with food and you're thinking about what you've eaten or not eaten, whether you're on your plan or off your plan, you're overweight, and you've got the squirrels in your head around food, then I would say go do bright line eating.
Yes.
If you're like, oh, my diet's, pretty good, and I'm sure I could be doing better, but like, can't everybody, but like, I'm pretty exhausted. Like I would love more energy, and I'm not crazy about food. I took your quiz, Susan, and I'm like a 5, then you go do the energy blueprint. Right. So it really depends on your pain point.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say if this is someone who's extremely overweight and their eating habits are out of control and they're binging on stuff and they just have no control around that, do bright line eating first. And then once your eating habits are dialed in, if energy is a struggle for you, or if you're looking to take your energy to new heights and just feel a whole lot better, then it's time to do the energy blueprint.
Yeah, totally. CoQ10. What do you think about CoQ10, Ari?
CoQ10 is one of many potential supplements that have benefits towards the mitochondria. So by itself, if that's your only strategy, not going to do a whole lot for you. You might get some minimal noticeable benefit, but in the context of an overall lifestyle and nutrition protocol designed to enhance your energy, as with CoQ10 being one of 25 things that you're doing, then it's a good supplementary strategy. But by itself, I'd say save your money.
Jill says, how do we sign up for Ari's course? I just realized I should pop that up, baby. There we go. You can sign up for it right there. Thank you, Jill. Someone here has an internet marketing background. Clearly neither of us. Let's just talk the whole night and not tell anyone how to sign up for the course.
Seriously. Well, we can.
You and I can. We will still be here Sunday at 8 p.m. and we'll pop the offer then. How about that? All right. Okay.
I want to answer this one from, I think it's Mai. She said, is hormesis another word for balance? No, you're probably thinking of homeostasis, and homeostasis is another word for kind of the balance of the body, but hormesis is not. Hormesis is actually something that temporarily unbalances the body, but it's designed in a way as to stimulate the body to recover in a way that it actually becomes more resilient, more energetic, healthier, more resistant to disease, and more resistant to stressors. So you're disrupting the homeostasis temporarily in an effort to actually make your body stronger. So that's definitely not balance, but it's better than balance.
There you go. Do you want me to feed you, or you want to pick, or there's a bunch?
If you see something, go ahead, throw it out.
Carol wants to know how all this pertains to lupus fatigue.
There are many different types of medical conditions that will have the symptom of fatigue. It can be a symptom of thyroid conditions. It can be a symptom of just being overweight. It can be a symptom of being diabetic. It can be a symptom of cardiovascular disease. It can be a symptom of almost any type of disease possible. But what I'm suggesting to you, so 2 layers to this answer. First is, if you have a particular medical condition, get treatment for it. Okay. If they have good treatment for you, the condition that you have, get that treatment. Number 2, in addition to whatever they offer you, do lifestyle and nutrition strategies that are designed to improve your mitochondrial function. Okay. And that works with whatever your doctor is going to tell you to do, or if they're going to put you on a drug or do any type of surgery. The lifestyle and nutrition component, to be honest, if we're talking in the context of any type of chronic disease, I'd say the lifestyle and nutrition component is a whole lot more important. And the strategies that I'm talking about to improve mitochondrial function, improve health across the board. We're talking about mitochondrial function in the context of fatigue, but there's actually a mountain of evidence showing that mitochondrial function and dysfunction is linked with all sorts of different diseases and longevity in general. So how long you live and your propensity to die from virtually any cause. So mitochondria, in other words, are a really key piece of your overall health, regardless of what condition you do or don't have.
Beautiful. Okay. So Mel says, Ari, will you be publishing a book soon? Ari's got a couple great books. Forever Fat Loss was the only diet book I've ever read that I liked at all. Other than mine, I actually liked it a bit. I liked it a lot. And I read it on a cruise. I read it straight through, and every page had references at the bottom, and I was like, loving this. And I agreed with pretty much what he was saying. Yeah. There were points where I was like, I want to flesh out this addiction piece here a little more, but he touched on it, which was impressive. Like, most people totally skim over the reward salience piece. Ari, tell them more about more books that you're writing.
Yeah. So, there's one that I've talked to you about that we should co-write. It's called The Diet Secret. And that one's all about kind of the true underlying factors of why people get fat and how to fix it. Yeah. So that's one thing that's on the agenda. Another one is a book about antioxidants. Another one is called The Truth About Adrenal Fatigue. That's going to go over the science around, the stuff I just summed up for you in like 3 minutes. It's actually going to be 100 pages of, here's all the data and here's all the studies, piece by piece. But no, I'm not going to be publishing any book like what's in my Energy Blueprint program. That's not happening. So if that's what you're asking, Mel, you can't get that information for $10.
You've decided that, huh?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. So when I was going all close, it's because I'm trying to read what the hell this word is. Allithiamine. Judith wants to know, does allithiamine, 100 milligrams a day, help mitochondria? Allithiamine. Allithiamine.
ALL. I have no idea what
L-theanine.
Maybe L-theanine.
L-THI.
Yeah, so it's L-theanine. That's what it is. L-theanine, right? Susan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, and it's not how she's spelling it. She's spelling it Allithiamine. So it's not the L dash that you're thinking of, but unless she spelled it wrong. And
so there's two things that she could potentially be asking about. One is thiamine, the B vitamin, and the other one is L-theanine, which is a compound in tea. Both are fine compounds that can potentially be beneficial in certain contexts, but they're not, I wouldn't say they're like really magical kind of super, super important supplements that everyone should be on by any means.
Okay. Deborah wants to know about chemo. So she says, so do you see what chemo does to the system?
Yeah. So chemo. So if you look up the specific chemotherapy drug you're using, look up that drug in combination with mitochondrial damage or mitochondrial dysfunction. And to my knowledge, pretty much every type of chemo drug is associated with mitochondrial dysfunction. So it's not uncommon. Fatigue is a very common side effect of chemo, and now you know why. Now you know why that side effect of fatigue actually happens, right? This is in one sense, it's a very common kind of everyday observation. Like, oh, you have a cold, you're tired and sleepy and fatigued, right? Oh, you're on so-and-so drug, you're tired and sleepy and fatigued. Well, it's like we've all experienced this. It's an everyday thing, but now I'm actually explaining to you why and how this happens. It's because of the energy generators in your cells are not producing as much energy as they normally do when they're detecting a danger present.
right? It's brilliant. Once you know, and knowledge is power, right? Once you know. How is mitochondria tested? Bridget wants to know. I asked you that question in February. I was like, so they have a test to just test your mitochondrial output? And they do. Tell her about the test, but you're not so thrilled with it.
Yeah, well, there's a couple different ways to test. One is called an ATP profile test, which is developed by a team of researchers in the UK. And it's potentially useful. The problem with it is it's expensive. And the reason that I don't really tell people to rush out and go do this is very simple. So if you have the symptom of fatigue, it's pretty much a guarantee that your mitochondria are not functioning well. So right. you can go spend the money if you want to get the test.
Right.
But as far as I'm concerned, it's telling us information that we already know. There's also another type of test that's from the lab I described at UCSD, this lab for mitochondrial medicine. But that test is just been developed, and it's by far the most comprehensive blood test ever developed. But it's not accessible for regular everyday people that they can just go pay $50 or $150 and go get this test done. It's probably something that will be done commonly 5 years or 10 years from now. But right now you can't get it done.
And what would that show? Because like you just said, if you're fatigued, your mitochondria aren't functioning. So what would it tell you that was any more helpful than that? Your mitochondria are not functioning very well. Exactly.
It's a little more nuanced than that because there are different types of mitochondrial dysfunction that can potentially be addressed in slightly different ways. I'm of the attitude of kind of the more shotgun approach, address everything, and
yeah.
Almost everybody's going to have at least some bit of dysfunction at every point in the system. So, nothing occurs ever in isolation. Everything in the body is a system. It's all interconnected. So as far as I'm concerned, you want to address and optimize every aspect of the system possible because they all feed into the other system. So the more that one is working bad, the more others start working bad, and vice versa. If you can start to optimize one, let's say your circadian rhythm and sleep, that now feeds into all the other systems, helping everything, your hormones, your mitochondria start to work better.
And I just want to tell everyone, Ari practices what he preaches. I've been to his house. I've slept at his house for days with his beautiful wife, Marcella, or almost partner, maybe at some point, wife Marcella and their beautiful son, Mateo. Anyway, moving right along from that. And he doesn't live like the rest of us, guys. He doesn't sit at a desk. He stands with really amazing posture at his, with right angles at his elbows, stands there working for short bursts, never for hours and hours. He'll work a little bit and then he'll go get some water from his glass bottle of water that's delivered to the thing. And the lights at dark, the lights turn orange in his house. There's no normal lights in his house. He's got a sauna for
I'm glowing a little orange right now because of these lights overhead here. I don't know if you guys can see these very well, but they're Edison style bulbs.
Yeah, they're amazing.
So.
And it's his, and he's got a sauna for a living room, for a dining room, whatever. The dining room is taken over by a sauna. Every day he's out in the sunshine, walking his dog at the surf, surfing in the ocean, can't stand to not be out in nature for a hot second. He lives what he's talking about, and he will teach you. Since I have met him, my energy is just through osmosis. I'm just implementing when I can, because I'm pretty, I'm running with scissors over here with Bright Line Eating. I'm doing my stuff, but I've got this wicked thyroid condition, which I keep trying to figure out with my traditional doctors. But on the side here, I'm doing what Ari's telling me to do. I'm taking the stuff he's telling me to take. I'm just implement David's changing the light bulbs. I'm doing little stuff. I'm telling you, I am bursting with energy. Now I'm 43, so I just started that slide down the 40 to 70 thing. But I've got wicked Hashimoto's on board and I'm feeling pretty good. So just saying, dude's a genius over here. All right. So we got Bridget, Jennifer's got the mega question here. What supplements?
Oh,
Words. What supplements?
Yeah, well, so there are lots of different ones we can talk about. There's lots of ones that are context specific. So for example, just, I think, what was it, yesterday or the day before, Susan, you and I were talking on the phone, and I told you, hey, there's this new study that just came out on Hashimoto's. There's this supplement I want you to get on because it's a supplement that has now been proven to have amazing benefits for people with Hashimoto's.
I want to run downstairs. I don't know if I should or not because it arrived. Like you told me.
Nice.
Yeah, like I have the bag of the black seeds. Anyway.
Yeah, so this is a study in the context of Hashimoto's specifically that has shown that black cumin seeds actually have really powerful benefits for people with that condition. So that's one supplement that I highly recommend for that specific condition. Now, if you have other conditions or if you just have more general fatigue or chronic fatigue syndrome, there's other supplements that I would recommend for that. A lot of supplements targeted towards mitochondria, and there are lots of different ones we can get into there that have proven scientific benefits.
I hope you guys are taking notes. Like I'm going through a Post-it pad here. Okay, keep going.
And then, some of the other strategies I talked about in the Energy Blueprint program. So for example, heal and seal the gut. There's over a dozen different compounds that have proven benefits as far as stimulating repair and regeneration of the gut so that it seals and you no longer have leaky gut. So that's one context, right? Fix leaky gut. There's a set of supplements to fix that thing. Detox. So there are supplements that can stimulate the liver to improve the liver's detoxification processes, as well as its stores of antioxidants, which are involved in detoxification. There's other supplements which are useful in physically binding to toxins and removing them from your body, right? So that's another context. So, there's what my point is that there's lots of different contexts here and different sets of supplements that are going to be useful in helping you accomplish each one of these different goals.
And we're talking to my tribe, so I just want to talk a little bit. Ari has been, okay, so let's talk about supplements here because I have a very strong message and you know what it is, Ari. What's my message to my tribe about supplements?
Your message is that you're not a fan of supplements.
Right. And when you and I first met, do you remember did you ask me or did I ask you? And it was a tentative question because
I think you asked me.
We were sicked on each other to vet each other is how we met. Like, basically, Ari was sicked on me to see if Bright Line Eating was another bullshit fucking diet program because they all are, right? Basically. And he started like grilling me and he's like, hey, wait a second. Like maybe, right? But it took about 8 hours for us to get there. So, so at some point I was like, oh yeah, well, what do you think about supplements? Are you one of these fitness dudes? Cause like I Googled him. I saw him with his shirt off. Like, I'm like, okay, so tell me what you tell your people about supplements. Like what kind of crap are you getting your people on? Right. And he took a deep breath and he's like, you might not like what I'm about to say, but I actually think most supplements are bullshit. And I was like, oh, okay. And all of a sudden, like my respectometer just went up. Now I have to say though, like, again, it depends, right? Like you could take kale and chop it up and put it in a non-toxic little thing. And you could, swallow that. And it's like, okay, well, is that the same as taking, some kind of toxic, prescription drug or whatever? Like just because it's in a pill doesn't mean it's bad, right?
Right. As an example, like I just told you to get on black cumin seed supplements. So, but I told you, you can buy this in a pill form, but you can also just buy black cumin seed, which is traditionally used in some cultures as a spice in food, in cooking.
Right.
And so use it that way. Now, is that a supplement or is that a food? Now, I'm of the opinion that my personal philosophies and stances on like broad areas don't really mean a damn thing.
Right.
What matters to me is what the science says.
Science says.
And so if the science says, if I'm preaching something for 10 years and I've built, I've told thousands of people about it, and then there's bunch of studies that come out and say that I was wrong, I'm the first one to admit that I was wrong and then start like going apologizing to people and telling them, hey, here's the deal. I was wrong about this. Let's fix this and let's get you on the right path. That is a rare thing in the world today, especially in the health world online, where people have particular stances. They're proven wrong over and over and over again in the research, and yet they still go on writing more books, teaching more people about the same thing that's already been proven wrong with even more fervor and more, more cherry picking of the data to prove their points and all this kind of stuff. So I'm not one of those people. Like,
yeah,
whatever the science says is what you're going to hear out of my mouth.
Yeah, totally. And so through knowing Ari, my stance on supplements has become more nuanced. I wouldn't say, like, we're not, thank God we're not in politics, right? So I don't have to defend being a flip-flopper, right?
Yeah.
It's become more nuanced. I still stand by the body of evidence that says that don't go taking a multivitamin. It's not going to help you. Right?
And I actually agree with you 100%. In general, the research does not support the use of multivitamin supplements as a whole. Even there's a lot of research that's not very positive around vitamin C and vitamin E supplementation.
Vitamin A.
Yeah.
They increase all-cause mortality. They freaking increase it.
Yep, exactly right. So now I say this like I'm trying to say it in a nice way because I'm afraid that people are going to be skeptical if I tell them.
People, they know this stuff.
Okay. If I tell them the truth on that, you know, sometimes people are like, when I tell them that, they're like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's saying that, you know, vitamin C and vitamin E supplementation is bad, but my naturopath put me on those supplements and told me that they're great. And so they become skeptical of me for saying that. And I'm like, hey, look, I'm not telling you anything that's controversial. This is actually what the science says. It very clearly says, this has been shown in dozens of studies over and over again, that these things really don't have benefit. Now, of course, it's possible to be vitamin C or vitamin E deficient, and that has problems. But that doesn't mean that pumping your body full of more via supplements is going to be beneficial. The research actually shows it's not. So most supplements, I'd say 95% of supplements on the market are generally shown to not really have any benefit of significance. And most are a waste of money. And I'm 100% in agreement with you there. The nuance is that there are some compounds that actually do have proven benefit and are extremely useful in certain contexts. Now, just to zoom out a bit, philosophically, I'm not of the view that humans need supplements to be healthy. Okay.
Right.
If we lived in our natural environment, then I would say screw supplements. Nobody needs supplements. Why would you ever use supplements? Like, just do what humans have been doing for hundreds of thousands of years. But here's the key distinction. We no longer live in a natural way in our natural environment. And we live in a very toxic, polluted world with lots of layers of dysfunction that damage our biology. As one example, there's toxins in our air, our food, our water, everything. And these things are building up in our system. So why would you not use supplements that can help your body get rid of those toxins? You know, in my view, it's a hindrance to not actively be using stuff that is proven to be beneficial in getting rid of the stuff that, you know, that's a problem in our toxic world. If you have leaky gut, why would you not use substances that are proven to help heal leaky gut? If you have mitochondrial...
high TPO antibodies, why would you not take those black cumin seed?
Cumin seed.
You know,
exactly.
Up. Why would you not do that? Research shows, they've done clinical trials on this, and it lowers TPO antibodies by hundreds of points. Like, why am I not going to do that?
It's like, what are you going to stare at the study and be like, well, no, I don't believe supplements work. Well, there's a study right there showing that they work, right? So, you know.
That one works for that. Right.
Exactly. So, you know, if you have mitochondrial damage, why would you not use supplements that are proven to repair and regenerate mitochondria, right? So all these contexts and supplements specific for that context, yes, 100%. But does that mean you should go blow a bunch of money on multivitamins just for random reasons? No, of course not.
All right, so let's cut to the chase. We're keeping people here. This is ridiculous because we're going long and people are not leaving, which is awesome. So I'm glad that you're all still here. This reinforces my idea that Ari and I should have a TV show. But let's try to get everyone to bed, including me, because it's almost 11 o'clock at night. So we have two things left to cover in my mind. We need to do a rapid fire through the Q&A and get people's questions answered. And then I want to tell people about the bonus that we decided to do, because Ari and I decided to dig into our own pockets to pay for a bunch of stuff for you guys, because we love each other and we love you, and we just felt like pimping it out. And also because Ari wants to help me win this contest, which is like a whole other thing. But you know, so we're just kind of in cahoots here, and we're literally digging into our own pockets to give you $200. And so and I mean literally, like, these things cost money, and we're paying for them for you. So here's the deal.
People would actually be shocked if they knew how much money they cost.
Yeah, right. Not cheap. So basically, here's the deal. Ari, if you go register for his Energy Blueprint course through me, which you're doing through this webinar, if you're on this webinar, click on the link. Right after you register, you'll get taken to a video of Ari. I believe this is how it goes, right? Of Ari explaining some amazing supplements that he's basically curated, and he's now starting to label them and put them out. And it's a $200 supplement package that the cost of which is like $200. So we are going to pay for that for you. Like, you guys get it for free. Don't pay the $200. You guys,
actually,
Ari and I are paying for it.
Yeah, by the way, let me just clarify. It's actually more like $300 at the normal price. It's already discounted to close to $200, which is honestly about my cost for the supplement. So like, I'm offering it to you at at $200. It's literally at the limit of where I start to lose money on it.
With shipping and all that. It's ridiculous. So he and I are splitting it. And so for each of us, basically, Ari and I are each ponying up $100 for each of you. If you register for the Energy Blueprint, you will get that for free. And tell them what these supplements do, because I'm freaking excited about them, and you're already sending me some. So thank you. Yeah,
my pleasure. So, so we're talking about context, right? So which specific contexts are supplements useful? So
you want energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's two key steps when it comes to mitochondria. I told you that mitochondria, when the physical membranes get damaged, that's what triggers them into defense mode. Well, it turns out that when you repair the membranes, that is, first of all, it's possible to actually physically repair the membranes.
Same with the brain. Same with the brain. It's all lipids, right? These membranes are lipids. There's all kinds of research on this. This is why the omega-3 and the omega-6 ratios are so important. But anyway, go ahead.
It's a specific type of fatty acids called phospholipids, and that's what make up the cell membranes and the mitochondrial membranes. And when they get damaged, when those phospholipids get damaged, if they're not replaced, the mitochondria will stay more in defense mode and have its energy producing capacity hindered. So by using specific types of phospholipid supplements, it's actually been shown in research that on average, and there's been at least 6 studies on this, on average, over the course of 8 weeks, people reduce fatigue or increase energy levels by about 40% just through this one strategy alone of nutritional phospholipids. Okay, that's just one thing. So just to ground this in a bigger picture context, in my Energy Blueprint program, I give you about 100 strategies. This is just one of them. So phospholipid supplements.
But this is the one people want. They take a pill.
Yeah.
We're back to like stuff that people can relate to. Give me a pill and my energy improves by 40%. Booyah.
Exactly.
Right. But in this case, you're not taking a pharmaceutical. You're just taking phospholipids that are going to repair the membranes of your mitochondria. So
exactly.
It makes sense. They're super solid. This stuff works in the brain too. There's science behind taking lipids to repair cell membranes. This is super solid. Yeah.
Yep. So that's one of those strategies, is we're physically going to go in and repair some of these damaged membranes of your mitochondria. And that's going to help shift them back into energy mode. One of the other supplements is to actually rebuild energy stores in the mitochondria. So one of the things that happens when they shift into defense mode is they kind of just get rid of, think of like a sponge that's like soaked with water. And you squeeze that sponge and all the water comes dripping out. So when mitochondria get shifted into defense mode, they kind of lose all of their energy generating substrates, all these different compounds that they use to actually produce energy. So the other supplement has a mix of various things, like D-ribose, like acetyl-L-carnitine, like magnesium, like various B vitamins, alpha-lipoic acid, curcumin, all these different substances that have been shown to help regenerate mitochondrial energy stores. So we're repairing the physical damage of the membranes, and then we're also recharging the mitochondria. Then one of the other things I mentioned to you, that gut permeability or leaky gut is a big factor in fatigue. And I mentioned that there's about a dozen different compounds that have proven benefits as far as regenerating the gut. So that's the other supplement. It's called Gut Revive.
So excited about that one.
And that supplement has got about a dozen ingredients, I think about 15 overall, that are proven, that actually have scientific research to show that they can physically stimulate repair and regeneration of the gut lining and help you get rid of leaky gut and gut permeability issues, which is, again, a huge factor, source of chronic inflammation and mitochondrial damage and food allergies and intolerances. So that's the third one. The last one is a sleep supplement. So one of the big problems with fatigue, it's kind of a vicious cycle. It can be caused in both directions. So poor sleep and poor circadian rhythm results in fatigue. And then once somebody gets fatigue, it actually tends to disturb their sleep and circadian rhythm even more. So this supplement is really useful in getting your sleep back on track. And it's a mix of 5-HTP, valerian, passion flower, lemon balm, GABA, a specific kind of GABA, and a small dose of melatonin. And and each one of those ingredients actually has research on it to show that it supports sleep, but together they're extremely powerful in getting your sleep back on track. So I highly, highly recommend that as well. And so that's the package. It's those 4 supplements. And like I said, my cost for manufacturing them is actually close to about $200. So you're getting them like pretty much at my cost. Yeah. Now, just a little insider's tip on supplements. A lot of people use low quality stuff, and they use doses that are about like a quarter or a tenth of the actual effective dose to keep their costs down. So they manufacture supplements in a way that costs them $5 or $7 a bottle to produce. I manufacture supplements in a way that costs me like $35 or $45 to produce, because they actually have real effective doses in them. So just so you know, this is the real deal. These aren't cheapy supplements.
Yeah. I'm super excited about that gut permeability one, because my Hashimoto's antibodies being so high, I don't know what from what, but my functional medicine doctor says that basically guarantees you have leaky gut. I'm like, how can I do that? I've been eating healthy for 14 years. Really? But yeah. I'm also, I'm stressed and living in a toxic world. And
by the way, stress by itself induces leaky gut. Psychological stress pretty much directly induces leaky gut. So there's sleep deprivation can do the same thing. So even with a good diet, it's still possible to have leaky gut issues. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm stoked. Thank you for sending those to me. And I'm psyched that we're getting to provide these for people, because this is like the real deal. All right. We're now so go ahead and order the energy blueprint. And then Ari and I are, like I said, we're chipping in halvesies to send that to you for free. So watch the video afterwards, but don't pay the $200.
Yeah. And by the way, if you guys can do me a favor, just so I know who's ordering, after you place that order, just send me an email at ari@theenergyblueprint.com and let me know that you ordered from this webinar, so that I can make sure that you get the free supplements.
Cool. And, we'll create a list on our end too, or whatever, or you will. We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay. So, rapid fire.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. I did the energy blueprint last time it was offered, so none of this offer applies to me, does it? No, this would be just for people who are signing up this time. Sorry.
If you want to buy it again, we're happy to do that. But the other option for you, since you already have the program, would just be to buy the supplement package itself. And if you want to email me, I'll offer you this discounted deal of $197, which again is close to my cost for it. So yeah, feel free to just send me an email and we'll get you taken care of.
Okay. And Yoff says lipids are fat, right? Won't that add calories?
No, not anything significant. So first of all, I want to make a distinction. We're not just talking about fat. We're talking about a very specific type of fatty acid this is a chemically very unique thing. This is not like, you can't get this from butter or fish oil or olive oil or steak or something like that. This is not something you get in regular fats. This is a very specific type of fatty acid. And I'm also talking about taking about 250 milligrams of the substance. So it has about 1 to 2 calories. You should be fine.
It'll be okay. All right. Susan says, I found out from a stools test that I'm not producing phospholipids. Help.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So when we're talking about a young, healthy person, They actually have the capacity to take certain building blocks of phospholipids and actually manufacture their own phospholipids to go and repair mitochondria. So this is a process that normally occurs in young, healthy people. As we get older, our bodies tend to lose that ability. So that's where the dietary phospholipids become extremely useful. Because our bodies can't do this job very well of manufacturing them, when you actually supply them in the diet, now the body goes, oh, wow, we have all these phospholipids that are undamaged. Let's go use them to replace the damaged ones in the membranes.
Cool. Marianne says, is this all a 1 month supply?
It is, yes. It's 1 to 2 months, depending on how you use them. But yeah.
Okay, cool. So maybe.
So, I mean, it's just to be clear, we're talking about four supplements.
Right.
So it's not $200 for a single bottle of one supplement. We're talking about 4 really powerful supplements, and yes, it's 1 month supply, 1 to 2 months, depending on how you use them.
Okay. All right. So we are getting the question: what if we already purchased? What if we already bought it? The supplement thing, and what if we already purchased the course? A couple people have said, what if we already purchased the course?
Yeah, all those people who that's the case for, they'll get the same deal that we're offering everybody here. Okay. So just send me an email and we'll get you taken care of.
Ari at energyblueprint.com. I'll type it in here. ARI. Is it at The Energy Blueprint or just Energy Blueprint?
TheEnergyBlueprint.com.
Ari, ARI at TheEnergyBlueprint.com. Okay. JC says, meat or vegan? Oh, Ari and I have talked about this a bunch. Go for it.
Well, I'll try and.
My dad is still on here. I want him to hear from your mouth what you think about meat or vegan, because he doesn't.
Is your dad vegan?
My dad's. I'm not going to tell you. You answer honestly, and then my dad will hear it straight from your mouth what you really think. What does the science show? What does the science show? For real, for real.
So let me just preface by saying that this is a huge topic. I mean, we could talk about the science on this for 3 hours. So I'm going to summarize a very big body of evidence in a few sentences. Basically, there is no really good evidence to support the exclusion of high quality animal products. Okay. And so I'm very careful with my word choices there. There is good evidence to show that low quality animal foods, like for example, processed meats, are harmful to human health. Okay. But is there evidence to show that, for example, wild caught seafood or pasture raised chicken or grass fed beef is harmful to human health? No, there's really no significant evidence to indicate that. So is it possible to be perfectly healthy while being a vegan? Yes. Is it possible to be perfectly healthy while being an omnivore who eats high quality, unprocessed animal products? Yes. Based on the current evidence, that's what it says. So this is not my personal opinions. This is not I'm not telling you about what I eat. I could be vegan. I could be an omnivore. I'm just telling you what the science actually says on this subject.
Okay. And Marcella is a vegan chef, right? You live with a vegan chef?
She's a vegan trained chef, yeah.
Yeah. And Ari, what's your personal belief about the amount of meat versus plant food that's optimal for someone to consume?
Yeah, so
basically if we just eat carcass all day long, are we going to be optimally healthy?
So the research, there's 2 basic unarguable points of nutritional science. You know, with all the debates around everything from Atkins and ketogenic diets to raw, vegan, high carb, low fat diets, you have this spectrum of all these radically different diets. Within that, there's 2 unarguable points that the science is crystal clear on. One is unprocessed food is key to health. That's number 1.
Get it out of your house. Yeah.
Yeah. Second one is mostly plant foods. So you want the majority of the food that you're eating by volume. So if you picture a plate, at least 50%, if not more, of that plate should be composed of plant foods. Okay. And
you wouldn't say more like 90%, ideally? Like
I'm saying minimum. Okay. Minimum. A technical definition of most is 51%, right?
What do you think is optimal?
It depends on what the rest of the plate is composed of, but I'd say 75% plus.
Okay. All right. I'll let you off the hook here. Okay. Okay. Deb says, will you be offering the energy blueprint in the future? Can you do this 8-week course anytime, or do you have to start now?
No, well, so first of all, I will offer it at some point in the future. This is probably going to be the only time in 2017 that it's released. Next time is going to be sometime during 2018. So maybe 9 months or a year from now. And registration is closing tomorrow night. So yes, you pretty much have to do it now unless you want to wait a year or 9 months or something like that. But I'd strongly suggest getting in now. So you have about a day.
And so you've got 24 hours, Deb. And what if Deb is going on a vacation or something? Can she like get it now, but not, but is there some flexing when she starts it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you do have permanent access to the program, and you can go through it on your own pace. You don't have to go one module per week at the same pace. Like there's nobody forcing you to stick with that in that way. And many people, the program is extremely dense with information. This isn't, you don't get just like one 5-minute video of me per week with like one simple little tweak. This is a really in-depth course that you're going to get a lot of science in each week. Yeah. So a lot of people do go through this slower. They do take quite a bit longer than 8 weeks to go through it all. And totally fine. A lot of travel comes up for everyone. Totally fine to take a few weeks off in the middle of it. No problem at all. Yeah.
And like Dave and I are going to want to go over it in our lives, because you can only implement so much at any given time, right? Like you pick out the low hanging fruit, like kind of get that square. And then, because it's habit formation, right? You can't just change everything all at once. Like I can't live like Ari does today. I'm still sitting in my fucking chair. I had a standing desk. I thought of it a long time. I want a treadmill desk, but like how much time do I have to buy something, set it up, acclimate? Yep. David did it. David has a standing desk now. And nice. My Facebook Lives there, sometimes I get tired, Ari. Like it's hard to do a standing desk.
I hear you.
All right. Jill says, so do we just say no thanks to the supplements during the order process and then send the email to Ari afterwards? That's exactly what you do, Jill. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically you'll place the order for the program, and then you just don't have to pay any attention to anything after that. You don't have to watch the video on supplements. So place the order for the energy blueprint.
Learn about what you're going to get.
Yeah. Do watch it. Just don't click, yes, I want this.
Got it.
Because you're already getting it.
Right. Emmy Yee says, so I already registered and paid for the supplements. I found Ari through Bright Line Eating. Does that $200 supplement come back to me? Yeah, Emmy. So email Ari at theenergyblueprint.com. Okay. Carrie Lynn says, how long do we have to take those supplements before we don't need to spend that money any longer? Some of us don't have that kind of money.
Yeah, for sure. Good question. So, like I said, I'm not an advocate that humans need supplements forever and ever. These are supplements targeted at creating a specific result. And once you get that specific result, you don't need to be on them forever. You don't need to be on gut healing supplements for the rest of your life. But I would suggest being on them for at least a month or 2 or maybe 3. But, in many cases, a month might actually be enough. So get on the supplements, fix the gut issue intensively. And then by all means, I'm not trying to suggest that anyone needs to be on these things for the rest of their life, but start fixing these issues by using some targeted supplementation, and then you're good.
Yeah, Cece wants to know, can she do the boot camp and the energy blueprint at the same time? She's on day 57 of Bright Line Eating and week 4 of the boot camp. Will there be future opportunities to do the energy blueprint? So Ari already addressed that. Cece, it really depends on you. So as you know, the boot camp is dense, right? Every week you've got all those videos to watch, and Ari's course is dense too. So what I would say is, if you're working full time and you've got kids, hell no. If you're retired and you've got probably like a lot of time and you're like, hey, I'm watching the video modules for the boot camp and I've got like time left over, like I could do other stuff. What I will say is, just be careful. It's not since you're on. You said I'm on day 57, which makes me think your bright lines are bright. When the nutrition piece comes for Ari's stuff, just read the document that Ari and I put together. and just trust that like bright line eating's got you covered there. I would not start introducing intermittent fasting or those are advanced strategies. Put that aside and use the energy blueprint to focus on, improving your circadian rhythm and, hormesis and that kind of thing. So that I would say, yeah, you can do both if you have the time. It's a big if, because they're both intense courses.
Yeah.
Okay. Alexis says, what light bulbs are you using?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'm using incandescent light bulbs, Edison style incandescents, and they're harder on your energy bill, but much easier on your health than either LEDs or fluorescents. Now, if you're interested in exploring some of the reasons why, there's actually a lot of reasons why. This is a topic we could talk about for 2 hours. But if you want to do a Google image search for like incandescent light spectrum versus LED or fluorescent, you'll see what the spectrum of light is in these different light sources. And the reason that this matters is different types of light wavelengths actually have different effects on our physiology. Light is actually a drug. Light is physiologically active. It's a bioactive substance. And most people just think of light as like, oh, it's light versus darkness, right? It's something that lights up the room so I can see stuff. But there are actually different wavelengths of light that have huge, profound effects on our bodies. And specifically, there's about 5 different bioactive frequencies. You actually already know one of them, which is UV light, which impacts vitamin D synthesis in your skin. And actually, it does a number of things beyond that, but that's the one that you're familiar with. That's because that light is hitting your cells, and there's chemical reactions going on. It's doing stuff biologically and altering hormones and all kinds of stuff, altering genes, the expression of your genes via sunlight exposure, right? So that's one wavelength of light. There's also red and near infrared light, which are 2 others which have profound effects on mitochondrial health. There's also far infrared light, which we feel as heat. And that also has effects on circulation and effects on inflammatory markers in the blood and all kinds of other benefits. And then there's blue light. And blue light actually feeds into our eyeballs directly into the circadian clock in our brains and affects all sorts of hormones in our body, including our metabolism, including our appetite and our propensity to even like things like sugar cravings are affected by the biological clock in your brain. So 5 different wavelengths of light that are all very, very important. And if you contrast the lights that I have above me, you probably see this nice kind of orangey glow on my skin right now.
Me too.
So that's because it's emitting more of the red and near infrared wavelengths of light, which have really important effects on, like I said, the mitochondria as well as cellular regeneration. And when you have LED or fluorescent lights in your home, or you're just looking at the screens from electronics, you're not getting any of those frequencies. And so you're missing out on all these benefits, and you're screwing up your circadian rhythm, and you're doing all kinds of nasty stuff. So that's my kind of 2-minute primer on light without getting into too much detail around the science.
Awesome. All right. Joseph says, Dr. Greger says that there are scores of studies that show that lower white cell count, like a 3, is a marker for longevity, whereas a higher number is associated with earlier death. How does this work in conjunction with hormesis, or does it?
To my knowledge, it's not related. It may very well be true. It probably is true. I like Dr. Greger's work. That lower white blood cell counts are a marker for longevity. To be honest, I don't know how meaningful that is. Like if you should go in search of lowering your white blood cells, based on the idea that it's going to enhance your longevity. And as far as the relationship with hormesis, no real connection there as far as I'm aware of.
Yeah, you have to think deeply about like correlation doesn't prove causation, right? So
exactly right.
Something else going on that, makes people with a lower white blood cell count.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious confounding variable that I would say here is if somebody has, like, for example, chronic infections, they're going to have a higher white blood cell count, probably, in many cases. And so that might just explain the correlation here without necessarily saying, going actively trying to lower your white blood cell count, to enhance longevity. You know what I mean? So correlation versus causation.
Deborah says, is there any relationship between leg aches and mitochondrial issues?
Leg aches. There might be. There is a connection between mitochondrial issue and fibromyalgia and actual body pains. So it is possible there's a connection there, but it's also feasible that leg aches could come from other sources than mitochondrial issues.
Julie says, how does alcohol affect mitochondria?
It is a mitochondrial toxin. So pretty simple answer there. Yeah, I mean, alcohol damages mitochondria. So if you consume a lot of it regularly, you will damage your mitochondria. Now, the caveat here is if you consume forms of alcoholic beverages that have high polyphenol and phytochemical content, so for example, red wine or even some types of beer with high xanthohumol content, that can help kind of counterbalance the mitochondrial damaging forces from the alcohol itself with mitochondrial beneficial compounds like those phytochemicals. So there's some research to show that those specific beverages are much less prone to causing mitochondrial harm.
Got it. Jeremy has an interesting question. What's your favorite way to cook vegetables?
I cook them in all types of ways. But in general, I mentioned earlier in this call, AGEs, advanced glycation end products. So those are things that are formed not just in plant foods, but actually more so in animal foods. And they're formed especially with more intense, higher heat cooking methods. And by cooking in those higher heat, more kind of aggressive, intense cooking methods, you form more of these advanced glycation end products, these AGEs, and those are actually a source of mitochondrial damage. So in general, as far as cooking methods, what the research says is best for health, the general idea that you want to get from this is gentler, lower heat cooking methods are better.
All right.
I like your reaction.
I'm busy, so I put the bok choy in the pot and I turn the heat on as high as it goes. Right? I'm like, oh wait, it's getting brown, and I just stir it around a little bit, gentler, lower.
Well, on the plus side, it's actually AGEs are much more of an issue with animal foods. So meats, for example, like high heat, like flame barbecuing, that sort of thing, creates a lot of AGEs.
Got it. Linda says, where can we read more about Ari's course to see what the time and monetary investment is? Linda wants to know. Right, because that link just goes straight to the order form. I'm assuming people know, but you've got 4 videos that are out, right? And they're still available until tomorrow night. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So where I would suggest going is theenergyblueprint.com/the-energy-blueprint. Okay. And if you want to just so to make sure that,
or Linda, let's just put in, I'm just going to type in here. If you just go to support.com and just ask, like, I want to see Ari's videos, they'll just send you over the links. That's
the way to do it.
Yeah.
Do that.
Do that. Support.brightlighting.com. Oh, Vicky wants to know more about how you recommend supporting and detoxing the liver. She says this is all fascinating, and she wants to hear more about liver detox.
Yeah, so liver detox. Well, so we're not necessarily like actively trying to purge the liver. So this is not like a master cleanse in the sense where I'm going to ask you to do like grapefruit juice or lemon juice with honey and olive oil or something like that. This is more about targeted foods and supplements that help boost detoxification pathways in the liver. That's one of the main detoxification pathways. So as an example of a few compounds, NAC, which is a compound called N-acetylcysteine, which is useful in boosting glutathione levels in the liver, really important thing. There are a number of different phytochemicals that have benefits as far as doing this, as far as boosting liver detoxification. Limonene in citrus fruits has a lot of benefits. Things like luteolin, which comes from celery and artichoke and things like that. A number of different phytochemicals help stimulate the liver in that way. And this is just kind of scratching the surface of it. But in conjunction with that, it's also using targeted supplementation to actually bind and remove toxins from the body. And so there are things in the diet that you can use, like cilantro and chlorella, which are useful in helping to do that. There are also like zeolites and modified citrus pectin and things like that that are very useful in actually physically binding to the toxins and helping to expel them from your body. So the liver is just one component of it, but it's one component of a much broader systematic detoxification strategy.
So Christine Erickson has an interesting question. How did Ari become interested in this subject? Because you don't tell your origin story very much. Yeah.
Well, it's a long story, but I mean, I've been in the health realm for a very long time.
It's 10:20. It's 11:20. Tell the long story very short.
Yes, very, very short. So I've been in the health realm and interested in nutrition and fitness since I was very young, since I was about 13 years old. And that's when I was actually seriously studying these topics since then. So 20 years now. I went through phases where my interests were more around fitness. I went through phases where they were more around health. At one point, I actually went through a period of extremely intense stress where I actually got fatigued myself. And that's what caused me to start to look into the adrenal fatigue stuff. And that's what caused me to want to write a book on that. And that's when I kind of encountered there wasn't really any science around that. And that's when I wanted to seek out, better explanations and to come up with a more science-based approach to understanding the causes of fatigue and how to fix it. So that's kind of the 1.5 minute version of the last 20 years of my life.
Nice. Sweet. Marianne has a great question. As a health coach, will I be able to teach this to my clients?
Absolutely. And you might be shocked, actually, if you knew how many MDs and dietitians and trainers and health coaches that I have go through this program. And oftentimes it's actually my best testimonials that come from those people, because those are the people that are like, I've been through so many courses on this. I've been teaching this for 10 or 20 years, and I would have never thought that I could go take a course where I'd learn so much new stuff. So yeah. I literally get testimonials from MDs and health coaches all the time. Yeah. I remember, Ari, when we were walking around Nashville, and I was getting blisters. We just kept walking and talking and walking and talking and walking and talking. I love the story that you told of, like, I just got interested in energy because my energy was tanking. And then I thought, well, what's good out there? And because you're just this fact finder extraordinaire. Like, you just dig into the literature and you're like, I got every book, every program, read every article. And I'm like, this is all fucking junk. Like, there's nothing out there. It's either trivial, like, make sure you get a good night's sleep, eat healthy food, pat, right. Or it's total bullshit. Like, take these bonus supplements, or I'm not talking about I'm talking about like really like trash, right. All these pills, or like the platitudes, like, yeah, drink, whatever, drink this little thing. And it's like nothing. There's nothing out there. And then you look around and there's like people just like wasting away without any energy. Yeah. Just like sitting around like, oh, and we're not even noticing the 7-year-old boy who's like bouncing with energy and thinking, we're not supposed to be like this. We're not supposed to be languishing like this. And there's nothing out there about energy production. It's a reason that, like, Ari is the darling. I was the darling 3 years ago. Ari's the new darling in the online health space because like his stuff is so substantive and it's so valuable. Like, I can't believe that no one ever looked around and saw this problem and thought, like, we need a real solution for this. Like, yeah, it's just. I'm kind of the darling. I'm also pissing a lot of people off by telling them that adrenal fatigue doesn't have good science on it. So I'm kind of I'm liked by many people, and then I'm also kind of the established paradigm of the adrenal fatiguers. Probably don't like me very much, but who cares? My allegiance is only to the science. And if I piss some people off in the process, then so be it. But I'm all about teaching people what the science says. Well, I'm with you, right? Because, like, I'm saying, okay, no smoothies, right? No smoothies, basically no supplements, unless like your stuff I trust, but like anyone else, like, no.
No smoothies, no supplements, don't exercise at the beginning. Like I'm saying all kinds of, so yeah, I'm with you, but I'm not surprised that the adrenal fatigue stuff is pissing people off. Of course, people are into their adrenal fatigue, you know.
Well, a lot of people have built businesses around it, you know, so.
Yeah. Christina, says your thoughts on water only fasting.
Fasting is an interesting topic, and it's actually a form of hormesis. So
there's good science on water fasts. True North Health Center. There's good science on that. And
there's actually some new science that just emerged, I think, yesterday. A new study just came out showing even more benefits. So, I'm an advocate of occasional fasts, and there is very good science to show that they improve mitochondrial health and help prevent disease and improve resilience and do have lots and lots of benefits.
So did you catch what he just said? A study just came out yesterday. So let me tell you something about Ari. He's hacked his Facebook feed, so he will never see a picture of a cute cat. He's blocked every single friend and person in the world from showing up on his Facebook feed. Nobody shows up on his Facebook feed. And instead, he's subscribed to Science Daily. What are they, Ari? What are the places you've subscribed to? That's all that's in your Facebook feed.
It's a lot of different things, and a lot of also people like me, but not necessarily in the energy and fatigue space, but like other niches of people who are like fact finders, like just they compile the research. All they do is just spend time digging into research, and then they're just constantly posting studies all the time. So I have, 90 people like that are all constantly posting studies. All the bodies of science, scientific review places that are hosting studies, all of that. That's what shows up in my Facebook.
Got it. Yeah. So anyway, that's why I just before I record a vlog on any science, I email Ari and I'm like, here's what I'm about to say about microwaves. Am I full of shit or is that actually true? And Ari's like, well, some people say this, here's some links. Some people say this, here's some links. Here's a nice review article that summarizes what's true. Have a nice day. Yeah. Within 2 hours, me 12 links. Thank you, Ari. All right. Jamie says, do you recommend essential oils?
Essential oils, there is actually, so it's kind of a woo-woo type of thing. Like, essential oils, generally people would think, oh, this is kind of new agey, like BS that doesn't really do anything or doesn't have any science on it. There actually is some science on the various essential oils as far as various different types of benefits. So, one example, there are studies measuring like lavender essential oil and like sleepiness or calmness versus anxiety, showing benefits. There are studies on, for example, rosemary and cognitive performance. And so various things like that. Now, are they mind blowing? Like, are these going to cure diseases and revolutionize your life and like transform your energy levels? No, not by themselves. They're not. But can they provide subtle benefits to your mood or to your energy levels or your cognitive performance? Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. That sounds like the research on subliminal messaging. Like, not enough to make you go out and buy a Mercedes.
Yes.
But, if you're sitting in the movie theater and you are already thinking you might get popcorn if they flicker some subliminal, right below your visual threshold, it might get you up out of your chair to go get some popcorn. Yeah. But don't go, playing French to yourself while you're sleeping and think you're going to go to Paris and be fluent all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Dina Sue says, I do not have fatigue in general. How do I know whether I should take your course?
Do you want to improve your energy levels? So this is not just for people who are like suffering from serious fatigue. This is also for just people who are already decently healthy and decently energetic, who just want to be a lot more energetic and learn basically the most cutting edge lifestyle strategies to not only be a lot more energetic, but also have the side benefits of greatly enhancing your resilience in the face of stress and extending your longevity and preventing, let's say, a few dozen different diseases. So if any of those interest you, then take the course.
Yeah. So someone named Hello says, Susan, is it possible without the F word? And I'm going to speak to that for a second. I've talked about this with my tribe. A long time ago, when I first started this, I was faced with criticism from, I don't know, whatever it was. I get all kinds of criticism, right? And there was a point at which I just oriented what I'm doing around being true to myself. And I get people coming in saying all kinds of things about what they wish I would do differently. I've tried to stop swearing a bunch of times in my life, and I am an abysmal failure at it. I keep swearing. And I agree that I would be much more evolved as a human being if I stopped swearing. And I'm just not there yet. So there's an unsubscribe, button at the bottom of every email. If you never want to hear swearing again, you should leave my tribe. That's what I got for you right now. It's the best I got, By
the way, on that note, since I'm a science guy, I will bring up the literature showing that swearing more often is associated with higher intelligence.
We'll fuck right on to that. Oh, sorry about that. Hello. No, Steven Pinker's got some great, have you read Steven Pinker's stuff on swearing?
No, I haven't.
It's really, he wrote a whole book on it. Do you know Steven Pinker, the language instinct guy?
I do know of him. Yeah. I haven't read a lot of his work.
Yeah. Brilliant dude. And so he wrote a whole book on swearing and its origins and stuff. And what swearing does is it like creates an explosion of activity in certain parts of the brain, and his stuff is more about the etymological roots of various swear words and stuff like that. But it also is on the neuroscience. Nice. And it's interesting stuff. And he's very careful to stay neutral about whether we should swear or not swear, but he does present some interest. It does create a salient experience for the brain that's going to highlight certain things. So Jill says, could you please repeat where we find the Energy Blueprint videos? See, this is where my team should be around, but they're all asleep or something. That we should be posting links. I'm sure. Am I getting your emails? I'm just trying to look through my email here real quick to see if I can. If someone who's gotten my emails about Ari's stuff wants to post the link, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, what I'd suggest is go to your email inbox and look for the last email from Susan and just click. So if you just do a search for like Susan and Energy Blueprint. Yeah.
I'm a genius. All right. I'm going to go into I can totally do this. It's not even going to take that long. Give me a second here. I've got a Dropbox. We've got files. Broadcast emails, Ari, Whitten. Here we go. 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 All right. So, Ari, what should I send them to? Video 4?
Yes.
And now have the links to everything?
Yeah.
All right.
Once you get access to video 4, you'll be able to go back to videos 1 through 3 if you want, or you'll just be able to watch video 4. And video 4 gives you like the big overarching paradigm.
All right, here we go. Ready? Ari's videos. Oh, yeah. Typed it in.
I'm going to go rapid fire for like 3 questions here, and then I think we got to call it a night since we've been on for 2.5 hours.
I think you're right. Pick the ones you like.
So this one's from Marlene. She said, is coffee a toxin as well? How about sugar and damaging mitochondria? So coffee, not a toxin to your mitochondria. In fact, it actually has a number of different beneficial phytochemicals, but caffeine actually has some really interesting kind of paradoxical effects on energy levels. And if you consume coffee regularly, like daily, you can actually hurt your energy levels in the long term, not through damaging mitochondria, but actually from affecting certain neurotransmitter systems in the brain around a specific one called adenosine. I talk about this in video 1 of the free training. So click on the link that Susan just posted and go watch video 1, and I talk about coffee in there. Sugar, yes, potentially can damage mitochondria, and through a number of different potential mechanisms, through promoting fat gain in general, through promoting inflammation. Yeah, there's some definite mechanisms that refined sugar will damage mitochondria over time. Carrie Lynn, will this regeneration of mitochondria improve dementia-related issues? I can't claim to treat. This is my just standard warning. I can't claim to treat or cure any diseases, but there is research showing that mitochondrial dysfunction is linked with dementia, is linked with Alzheimer's, is linked with Parkinson's. And so if, it only stands to reason that if you improve your mitochondrial health, you will get benefits in that regard. And there's quite a bit of evidence to indicate that. See if you can find any last question that we can answer here.
Oh, this is tough. Last question. Okay, someone said Susan mentioned ashwagandha. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Can you please talk about that a little bit? I heard it helps with anxiety. That's what the person says. And I don't know, correlation doesn't prove causation, but I feel like pretty great since starting to take that stuff.
Ashwagandha is a great supplement. It's what's called an adaptogenic herb. And part of the effects that an adaptogenic herb, it turns out, actually has, it's working by affecting the mitochondria through a type of hormesis. So it's actually mimicking some of the effects that exercise tends to have and other forms of hormesis tend to have on helping to stimulate the mitochondria to grow bigger and stronger and helping you to increase your resilience in the face of stress. And in addition to that, there's other mechanisms that it works by. There's also research showing that it positively impacts various hormones in the body and that sort of thing. But ashwagandha is a great substance and it works on the mitochondria.
All right. Okay, a sympathy one. Because one last one. Cynthia says, I hear you talking about physically challenging your body to help strengthen your mitochondria. However, when I start to exercise or overexert myself in any way, I get very sick and I go into a pain flare.
Yeah, beautiful. So I kind of talked a bit about this earlier, but the basic idea, if you think of the concept of hormesis and this resiliency threshold that I'm talking about, basically what this person is saying is that their body has a really low resiliency threshold. It's getting easily overwhelmed by even mild stressors. So that is actually a symptom of mitochondrial shutdown. Okay. So the goal here is when you're in that very fragile state, when your mitochondria have been weakened to that state, you have to be very systematic about how you do hormesis. And that's why hormesis is actually the last step. It's the sixth step in my system. It's not the first step. It's the sixth step because there's all these other pieces of the puzzle that we need to heal and regenerate your mitochondria first and get all your nutrition and lifestyle habits dialed in. And then we can start to apply some of these mitochondrial stressors to try and build them bigger and stronger. But if you try and apply too much of those when you're in too fragile of a state, then you get a problem. So that's why things are organized in this way. And it has to be done in a very systematic way. So I don't recommend going and jumping into exercise right away for somebody who's in that state. You have to start with other gentler forms of hormesis. And I'm gonna answer one last one here from Krista. She said, I've tried for over a year to fix leaky gut, but nothing has worked so far. Do you have a site where I could look up what might work? Yes, theenergyblueprint.com. That's one of the steps in the program is to heal and seal and fix your leaky gut. So I'm going to show you the best science on that subject as part of an overall lifestyle program to do everything, not just fix the gut. Hopefully you've gathered from me, from listening to me talk about this, that when people ask about just one thing, oh, what about, CoQ10? What about this thing? What about that thing? What about essential oils? These are little pieces of the puzzle by themselves. Honestly, they're not going to do much noticeable for you. But when you start comprehensively and systematically rewiring all of the systems in your body, and especially focusing on the mitochondria, everything really centers around the mitochondria. When you do that, that's where the magic is. So if you're interested in, if you have inflammation issues, if you have energy issues, if you're just looking to be much more energetic, then I strongly recommend clicking the button below and buying the program.
There you go. That's the way to end. Yay. Register for Peirce program. I couldn't recommend it more strongly.
So Susan, thank you for staying up so late and thank you for doing this on your birthday. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's birthday after that. It's like it's almost over, yo. I got like 22 more minutes. Yay, yay, yay. Yay. Yeah. And up again tomorrow for another long, fabulous, wonderful day. I've started floating. Ari, have you done the float tanks, the salt?
Yeah. They're awesome.
I'm Friday's my float day.
Nice. Yeah, that's good stuff. I love it.
The sensory deprivation tank, and you just like, that's the best meditation in the world.
For sure.
Tomorrow. All right. You have a great one, Ari. Everyone, thank you so much. How many people stayed on with us till the end? 364 people stayed on with us till the very, very end.
Nice.
Oh, love you. Jamie says I signed up, but I don't know what the second offer was for because I have the webinar on. Well, you're good, Jamie. It was for a bunch of supplements that we are sending you for free, that Ari and I are paying for you. So you're all cool in the gang.
Awesome.
All right. Okay, everyone.
Well, thank you guys so much. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the Energy Blueprint program and helping to guide you to higher energy levels over the next 60 days. And thank you so much, Susan, for having me on and doing this, and for sharing this precious time on your birthday with me. It was an absolute pleasure, as always.
As always, Ari. Lots of love. Lots of love, everyone. Good night.
Good night.